Greetings gamers, and welcome to the 106th live stream from the MisfitGamersStudios. I'm your host Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. On today's episode, we have a new subclass. Hang on a second. Whoa, phone. Chill out. I have my stream on my phone. Hang on. All right, on today's episode, we have a new subclass submission. Now, we have a subclass submission, and it's going to be a little bit of an odd one because it is titled Shinobi. Now, what that tells me is either monk, maybe? Rogue, maybe? No, we have a martial subclass. That means that we have a fighter subclass named Shinobi, which I am actually very fascinated in seeing, because that is not what I think of when I think of a Shinobi. I think of Shinobi, I think of ninja, I think of sneaky, I think of rogue. If not sneaky and rogue, I think of someone who's gonna be more of the martial class, but more of the direct in your face, actual martial artist class, which would be the monk. But that's not what we're having, so we are very interested to see what that's going to be about. And this has been submitted by Pokeniner. So I hope you were just as excited as we are. And yes, I say we because we do have Kage in the studio. Finally, after a week of being gone, we have him. So let's bring him in. We'll get started, and we will take a look at this new subclass. What is up, my dude? You've been gone for so long. Who are you?
I know.
What is this stranger in the studio?
Craziness. Shalom, my friends. Shalom. Yes, I've been off at camp with a bunch of teens.
Teens,
listen,
kids.
I know it's a whole thing, but no, it was a really fun time. I had a good time. I'm glad we got to go, and yeah. You know what's crazy? Like it's hot here, but it was not as bad up there.
Were you in the woods? Were you near water? What kind of area were you in?
We were pretty
like
highly
foothills
elevated.
area, so where it gets
Yes.
higher elevation. So yeah, higher
Yes.
elevation definitely, especially out here on the west. Higher elevation is the place to go when it gets hot. I
Definitely.
love
So much
going
so-
backpacking and camping up in the higher
It randomly
elevations.
started raining.
See,
for
that's
like
what I'm
60
talking about.
seconds while we were up there.
Nice.
It was crazy. And
But so no water or anything, but at least just high enough elevation to
Yeah.
And see, that's the thing about being in the West too. It's like the East Coast. I mean, nobody can talk about humidity like the East Coast can.
Yes, facts.
But out here on the West, the closest thing we get is if you're near a still enough body of water, it can start to get a little bit humid.
Yeah.
On the hottest of days. But yeah, it always depends on kind of like where you go, what you're going to experience. So that's good that you missed most of it.
Facts.
I always just think of like stuff like that as like I always assume that it's going to be at a like a lake or something like that, That's why I always is it near water? Like you doing lake activities?
No, but they did have a swimming pool up there, so
Okay.
we have our own little,
Not too bad.
They have these sweet fire hoses, and they created a giant slip and slide for us down one of the hills that was up there. So it was kind of cool. It was kind of cool.
Nice, not too dangerous. Not too dangerous.
Not too dangerous. Exactly.
All right, not too bad. So yeah, how excited are you about today's? I know you've been waiting for a while for this one.
That I've missed so many of our community creations, but I am very, very excited for this one because ever since I saw the laundry list that Pokeniner sent us out the gate,
Yeah, the whole book.
yes, this one was one of my favorites because I'm very much ninja all things. So listen, I live this life. And I will be very excited to see the direction that it goes. I was also a little taken back by it not being.
I was gonna say, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about this not being rogue or monk? I mean, at bare minimum, I would have expected rogue. I could see monk like on the outskirts, but how is this not a rogue class? How do you feel about that?
It's interesting. Put it this way, I feel like there's a lot of possibilities with fighter just because they get so much like when it comes to action economy, and they can do so much. So I get that to a certain extent, but I'm curious how many specific features we're going to see in here and how well they synergize together, because it's with the progression that we have in this class. I definitely want to. I mean, we even have talked before about like inserting additional pieces in there, so there's not so much of a gap between. But I think that's why they might have gone this route, but.
Well, no, and you brought up a good point too, because we're talking about like Shinobi brings up the idea of like ninja, right? And the ninja is a mentality of it's not even secrecy and stealth. It's more about not meeting expectations, right? Like the original ninja were farmers who learned to use the tools of the trade to defend their lands, and nobody would have expected that, right? It's not about being dressed in black and hiding in the shadows. It's literally about hiding in plain sight. So when I think of Shinobi, you would think, you know, monk, maybe rogue, and you would think this is more of a fighter influence on those two. Now it's going to be interesting because now we have a subclass that's more of a fighter with a rogue/monk influence. And that's what I'm really curious to see how we feel about this one, because my approach to this, outside of our normal balancing, outside of our normal approach to the review, and, you know, its compatibility with High Point, what I'm really curious about doing is dissecting this into an aspect of, does Shinobi, right? Because Shinobi comes with Shinobi's a weighted name, right? It comes with a lot of expectations, a lot of connotations. There's a lot of ways that anyone can approach it. So my biggest thing right now is when I think of Shinobi, I think that saying that this is a rogue fighter hybrid, monk fighter hybrid is accurate. However, I think there's a big distinction between a rogue with fighter influence and a fighter with rogue influence. Now, granted, monk can be thrown in there, but monk also has its own connotations, and I think that real world monk fits better with Shinobi, but D&D monk doesn't. So I'm gonna step away from monk in terms of this review.
Okay.
I'm gonna look at this as, should this have been a rogue subclass? So a rogue with fighter influence, or does this deserve to be a fighter with what I interpret as rogue influence? Because with Shinobi, right? Shinobi leads you to the idea of the ninja were the hiding in plain sight. It was the original aspect of being a trained person who was not expected to be a trained fighter, right? That was the origin of the ninja. But Shinobi, I feel like more colloquially, more modern day, is what we attribute to like the video game version of ninja. The Shinobi is the assassin. It's the silent, hide in the shadows, ninja assassin. And maybe I'm wrong traditionally in terms of verbiage. Like, I don't necessarily know off the top of my head the different terminologies of where Shinobi originally comes from. But I know that when I hear the term Shinobi, it inspires video game silent assassin. It gives me the ninja assassin vibe.
Sure.
So this is where, just to kind of give you all my viewpoint, my baseline is, this is where I'm going to approach it from. I'm going to approach it from our normal balancing, our normal compatibility with High Point, but there's going to be this subtle layer of, is this a fighter with, does this deserve to be a fighter with rogue influence, or do I think this should have been a rogue subclass influenced by fighter? That's where my mind is, because that's where I think when I hear Shinobi, I think it can be both a fighter and a rogue subclass. But I think that they're both going in the same direction, right? It's the division between fighter and rogue. I think because of D&D and the way that they've done monk, I don't think monk applies, because monk, unfortunately with D&D, really only stresses what I feel is non-weapon. Like, unfortunately, it's not even a mindset or a characteristic. Monk is just the non-weapon subclass.
It feels like it should be called martial artist, not monk.
We've done, yes, right? Absolutely, 100%. And monk is really martial artist, which is hilarious, because you look at something like this and it's called a martial archetype, which again, martial is not like, fighter says something to me. Martial says something else. Fighter and martial don't equal the same thing to me. You were 100% correct. When I think martial artist, I think monk. When I think weapon specialist, I think fighter.
That's fair.
And when I think fighter, when I say fighter, I think weapon specialist or multi-specialist. Whereas a monk and a martial artist, I assume you have one specialty. A fighter is more like MMA. You have multiple specialties or weapon specialties, right?
And that could be the good difference. But I do think that you can have a martial artist that is a weapon specialist, but I will say it's a lot less common because when you are training in a martial arts, you're training in an entire lifestyle. So like being able to like have this like large plethora of stuff that you can choose from, like you're likely going to specialize. You're going to choose your style of martial arts and you're going to run with it, and you're going to be like that.
And I've talked about this before, where
some others and turn it into your own style of martial arts, like some others have.
Yeah, and I've talked about this before, where I don't necessarily like the direction that D&D has gone, in the fact of you're a fighter, you have simple martial weapons, which means you have a plethora of weapons that you're specialized in. I don't like this idea because no one does that. No one goes and trains to be proficient in every weapon that's in this category. You specialize. So we've had these conversations where martial is misused, monk I think is drastically misused, but this is going to be interesting. So yeah, I wanted to kind of flatten that out because that's the direction I want to go. I want to look at this from a point of view of who should be the star. Should it be a rogue with more of a, fighter influence, a rogue that wants to be more combat oriented, or is this a fighter that wants to be more secretive?
Okay.
That's just my general approach. I may be wrong with my terminologies, but that's just my influence. And I want to point that out so when I make my comments,
that's kind of
we know where we're headed.
Yeah.
All right, so let us begin. That was the wrong camera. Let us begin. All right, Shinobi. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Shinobi subclass, the martial archetype subclass, aka fighter subclass of Shinobi, submitted by Pokeniner, one of many.
Love it.
So we have our first description. Trained in the ancient traditions of covert warfare, Shinobi move like whispers in the darkness. Their deadly blades dance through the air like a falcon swooping onto its prey. Adept at distinct combat, the Shinobi is a master tactician. Adept at distinct combat, the Shinobi is a master tactician, utilizing every mistake that they or their foe may encounter. Many Shinobi trained under masters of skill. Many Shinobi train under masters of the skill until they are deemed ready to carry the title. Due to this, however, Shinobi have become much more uncommon as masters of the art. Due to this, however, Shinobi have become much more uncommon as masters of the art are just as hard to find. I don't know if I read that. Like, that's a very weird sentence.
Let me check the original translation, see if that's my fault. But for the most part,
I think the idea is that Shinobi have become much more uncommon, as masters of the art are just as hard to find. As in, masters of the art of Shinobi are just as hard to find as standard Shinobi. So to become one, it's just as hard as finding one.
Yeah.
I think there's just a missing comma there.
Okay.
And at least for the way I read it. So yeah, there's just that. So right off the bat, we've always talked about layering. We've always talked about how we like the thing. This is nice. It's not captivating. It's not drawing me in. It's not like, oh my God, I gotta know everything. But it paints a good picture. It's solid. And based off of the description alone, I feel comfortable that they're leaning towards fighter prominent. This is feeling fighter with rogue.
Especially when they're talking about being a master tactician and things of that nature.
Exactly. Traditions of covert warfare, that's fighter. Shinobi move like whispers, that's your rogue. Deadly blades dance through the air, that could be either direction. Mm-hmm. Like a falcon swooping on its prey, that to me is more fighter, because now granted you think of rogues as in and out, but falcon swooping on prey, that's a fighter move.
That's
into the aggression, right?
Yes.
Adept at distance combat, rogues are usually up close through the shadows. Fighters can be distant, so it's more fighter.
I'd say there's at least in 5th edition, there's an argument for both, because there's a lot of like those
fair point
archer rogue builds.
You hear master tactician, that's fighter, not rogue. Right?
Yes,
Tactician is fighter. Every mistake, that they're rogue, that that could go both ways. That's very even rogue and fighter, but definitely more, I would say, if you had to choose, more fighter to lean on the mistakes, you know, use the weight against the enemy kind of thing. Rogues are waiting for distraction. Fighters are waiting for mistakes. They train under masters. Rogues are usually solitary. Fighters usually train under masters.
Agree.
Rogues usually are more greedy. They'll take whatever title they get. Fighters wait to earn it. So same thing as here. And then again, the idea that they're rare seems to be more of a fighter mentality because it's something that they're holding on to a tradition, whereas rogues adapt with time. So I'm pointing out all of the ideas of I'm starting to feel more comfortable because at first I was personally feeling this should have been rogue based, but the description already is giving me good fighter vibes.
Okay. Right on.
All right, so let's move on. That's a cool little image too. I don't know if this was done by Pokeniner or just found online, but this is a good image of a Shinobi.
I like
that. So yeah, I do. That's a cool little artwork there. All right, so before we get into this is a fighter class. So bring us up to speed, my good man, on fighter up to 3rd class.
All right, so we got
Our
2
3rd
levels. We got 2 levels starting out the gate. We have our fighting styles, which is basically kind of articulating how, kind of like we were talking about earlier, how does this particular fighter fight? Like, are you an archer? Are you a defensive fighter? Are you a dueler with one-handed weapon? Are you...
So this is going to kind of essentially... And this is at 2nd level?
This is at 1st level.
Oh, so this is going to essentially build the direction of what style of weapons you're going to use.
Yes.
And that's interesting because we've already shown that with the description here... adept at distance combat. So most likely, if you're intending to choose a subclass, you're probably going to lean more, like what you were saying, to some more ranged options. Spear or missile type weapons.
Yeah, you can do... There's a archery subclass, which just is in general for ranged attack rolls, whether that's like throwing a kunai or something to that effect, or using a bow and arrow. It can all count towards...
Gotcha.
And you get this +2 natural bonus to any attack rolls you have with your any ranged weapon, which is pretty good. But you can do other things, like another one that would be, I feel like, would be very fitting for this subclass is blind fighting. Imagine being able to fight in the dark, doing some hand-to-hand combat, maybe with some daggers or some sickles or something to that.
Blind fighting and the darkness spell.
Yes.
Two amazing things parties don't utilize enough.
I would love
combat parties that understand that. Blind fighting and the darkness spell, an amazing combo.
And especially if you have a warlock that can actually see through magical darkness and they can still be casting spells in there at the targets too, it would be game over. Easy. But yeah, so there's other things like thrown weapon fighting and what's it called? 2-weapon fighting. So like if you want to be dual wielding, it helps you a lot with.
So all of those would definitely benefit this subclass, but probably going to go towards the either reach or ranged combat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then so 2nd and 3rd level.
One more piece at 1st level. You get your 2nd wind, which allows you to roll one of your hit dice to regain some health in the middle of combat. And then at 2nd level, you get the ever popular and why everyone wants to multi-class into this, Action Surge.
Yeah, the second attack.
Attack actions throughout your turn.
I mean, you can make any action, but really, let's face it, it's a second attack.
But
it's what everyone uses it for.
It's one of the few ways that wizards can cast 2 spells in a turn.
Yeah, if you multi-class, yeah.
Yes.
I was gonna say if you subclass, but if you multi-class, yes, you can actually get your, which is interesting because it's like 5th edition went away with the standard rule of no matter what, you can only cast 1 spell per round, which I do agree with. Like, even earlier editions, no matter what you did, 2 spells a round were just, there wasn't an option, right? It was 1 spell per round, even if you had haste and stuff like that. But I do appreciate, like, I've adopted that to in High Point, where if you have haste, you can cast 2 spells, even if 2nd edition technically didn't allow it. I do prefer being able to have...
That does make sense, especially when you're being magically enhanced.
Exactly. I 100% agree. What's going on, Hecate? Nice to see you.
Welcome, my friend.
Hopefully you're excited for this. This is the Shinobi subclass, fighter type, not rogue type, so we're very interested. Okay.
I love it.
So that was all second level.
That was all second level.
Second
so now
level.
we're caught up. Third level is our martial archetype feature.
And which is Shinobi. So at third level of fighter, you choose Shinobi. Let's see what you get when you do. All right, there's your Shinobi class. So you get skills of the Shinobi. Starting at third level, your training as a Shinobi has honed your skills, both in and out of confrontations. You gain proficiency in the stealth skill and can take the hide action as a bonus action on each of your turns. You can also add your proficiency bonus to your initiative rolls. Now, I believe that is exactly what the rogue gets. So this is very much...
This is a watered-down version of what the rogue
of the
gets.
standard rogue. So this really is a fighter with rogue influence.
But you do get a little bit more. That adding a bonus to your initiative rolls is something that rogues don't get, which is actually kind of interesting. Especially getting the jump in the initiative in combat. I like that.
So I will say this. I was immediately like, no, this should be a rogue subclass with fighter influence. You know, maybe give the rogue an extra attack would be kind of cool for a Shinobi. Maybe giving them some extra speed. I gotta say, the description made sense, and I was like, okay, cool. Let's see where you go with this. We're only on the first skill, and I'm already kind of convinced they're going the right direction. Like, this right here, the way that they've incorporated this into the fighter feels better than how I would have tried to incorporate a fighter abilities into... No, 100% this is already feeling better. So I think I'm wrong. I think I was wrong initially. My gut instinct is wrong. I think Shinobi is a fighter subclass. Like, I'm already...
like it so far.
We haven't even gotten that far in, and I'm already starting to get convinced. That's good. Okay. So yeah, so right off the bat, let's say you're a fighter and you get stealth skill. That feels great. That's exactly what you want, right? Because we were talking about whether it's a fighter to rogue or rogue to fighter, both of them have the stealth, and that's exactly what you want. If you are a fighter being influenced by a rogue, there is no way you're not going to want that stealth aspect, and by not having that stealth aspect as first would kind of ruin the flow. So I'm already on board with this. It does make me wonder, though, is this going to give the fighter backstab?
Interesting. So, as a fighter, specifically, you don't even have the option to choose stealth normally as one of your starting proficiencies. So this is... either you get it from your background, which is another way you get a lot of your proficiencies.
Right.
But either you get it from your background or you get a feature like this that gives you a proficiency. And so that's
great.
Kind of clean for this.
And this already makes me wonder, are they going to attempt to add in backstab? I don't think they should, but I kind of want it. Like as someone taking this, I'd want it. But as someone looking at this from but rogues deserve to have their own thing, I wouldn't want that line to be crossed.
Yes.
So
I'm talking about that last time. It was actually your stream with the conversionalist. You were talking about not wanting to take away the purpose of a class and giving it to somebody else, so it almost feels like
you want to stay distinct, but you also want to give opportunities to see other classes utilize it in different ways. So
and I think we're doing a good job of that.
So yeah, I would definitely I would love this to have backstab as a fighter, but I don't. But as a broader DM or a broader D&D fan, I wouldn't want that. Yeah. So I'm kind of torn on that. Okay, but yeah, skills of the Shinobi, I love that for a fighter. Being able to have proficiency in stealth, which again, we're not asking anything much. We're just giving them proficiency, and then being able to take the hide action. Boy, being a fighter with the hide action as a bonus action, whoo, juicy.
Bro, it gives you something to do with that bonus action,
juicy. Man. And we talked about this. The lore states that this is supposed to be a range. So, I mean, you're almost talking... Like, basically, this is almost trying to be what the ranger class always wanted to be.
I mean, the next feature is called tactical throw, so I'm assuming...
I'm waiting for that, too. Okay, so yeah, no, I'm just... Skills of the Shinobi, I'm 100% on board. I have no changes. I think that solidifies... Like, we have always talked about this. The things that you see very early on are what you would consider the either the foundation or the cornerstone, the staples. And this right there, basically telling me right out the gate, you are a fighter at heart, but we're gonna give you some extra cards up your sleeve. That's what I'm looking at this, right? You have this ace up your sleeve. You can hide. You have extra on stealth. These are things that no other fighter out there has. yes, these are things that are typical for the rogue, but this is that unique spot, right? I don't feel like we're going to see this happen very often. You're not going to see a dozen other subclasses try to mimic this, right? This is going to be that one specialty. And what I'm also hoping to see, not just this perfect blend of fighter and rogue, what I'm hoping to see is the balance in the other direction, where yes, we're seeing this big influence from rogue in this one specific spot, but I'm hoping that by the 9th to 14th level abilities, we see a big push for fighter again. Because if you just keep focusing the subclass on rogue, you're going to ruin it.
Right.
But if we see this, give me a couple of these rogue abilities, and then big shift back to a massive fighter ability, I'm going to love it. You know what I mean? I want that to be a good balance. Benji Pixel, what is up? Whose subclass and who made it? So this is a custom subclass submitted to us by one of our other viewers named Pokeniner. This is a fighter subclass that we are looking at. Any one of our viewers can take a look and submit any of their homebrews, and we take a look at them every Monday. You can get your class reviewed. It's a half done right now. Absolutely. So if you are interested in having any of your stuff reviewed, we do accept new revisions. You can submit those in our Discord. I've just posted that link in the chat. If you join our Discord, we have a submissions channel. You can submit any of yours. Typically, if you are new to the channel or new as a follower and it's your first revision, we usually bump it up to the top of the list. I'll have it. So go ahead, take your time, finish it up. Let us know when it's all done. And every Monday we'll flop it in. We'll put it in. We only do one every Monday, just that way we have the entire stream to really digest it. Put that into the Discord. We'd be happy to have you. Thank you so much. All right, so skills of the Shinobi. I'm 100% down with that. I think it makes a fighter feel really great for this. I'm really hoping that this isn't just... Thank you so much for the follow. I really do appreciate you, Ben.
Benji.
Benji, not Ben. Benji, there we go. I'm really hoping that we see a big shift to fighter. I'm really hoping for that. It won't be done for a minute. Do not worry about it. Like I said, we will fit you in as soon as you get it in. Don't worry. I appreciate you though. All right. So also at level 3, we get something called tactical throws. So not only do you get stealth, not only can you hide, but now you get tactical throws. Also at 3rd level, you've gained. Tactical throws. Also at 3rd level, you've learned to throw and recall your weapons with great precision. So it's like a Thor mechanic. Gotcha, like a boomerang. So it's a built-in boomerang feat. That's fascinating. Usually you only get that through magical means.
It's giving me like Naruto vibes and like throwing the little boomerang like shuriken type deal.
And that's why it said it wants to have you at ranged. It wants a ranged focus because whenever you make a ranged weapon attack with a weapon that has the thrown property, you gain the following benefits. Now I love that they're making it sure that it has the thrown property, because this isn't just saying that anything you throw has this. It's very specific to something that is a thrown.
Does not have the thrown property. It's a ranged weapon.
Exactly.
Blowgun is not a thrown property.
So you gain the following benefits on any thrown property weapon. Sharp range. Attacking at long range doesn't impose disadvantage on long range weapon attack rolls using your thrown weapons.
That's sick.
Now,
I freaking love that.
Now, here's my problem with it. My only problem with it. Every weapon has a short and long range, right? Like it has the 2 ranges, right? And the idea is what you get standard versus what you get at disadvantage.
Correct.
Well, okay, no, I've answered my own question. If it has the thrown property, it has the 2 ranges. This is just stating that you don't get disadvantage on the upper range, which means it still has. My original comment was going to be that this doesn't give you an upper range, so it's saying unlimited. But no, every weapon has an upper range if it's thrown. Yes. So it's just saying that the upper range allowed. So if it's 30-120, that 120 isn't at disadvantage.
Correct.
Gotcha.
But 120 is your limit. You cannot go past 120.
It is still the limit.
Yes.
Okay, so that's dope. And again, it said it in the description. It's meant to be a range. So if you didn't go ranged, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, just like there's an archer fighter subclass, like an arcane archer.
And this is something that there is no subclass that I know of right now that focuses on ranged weapons. There are plenty of subclasses that go on like missile weapons, like archer and stuff, but no one really. There's not a subclass that I know of that focuses on this. Like gives you like specialties on this stuff. So I like that. Think about a javelin with no with no range restrict. Oh my god, I would do javelin.
That would be crazy.
Javelin.
That would be crazy.
So that's one benefit. It also gets improved throws. Your thrown weapons can deal damage equal to 1d6 plus the attack's ability modifier on hit instead of the weapon's normal amount. So anything that's lower than 1d6 increases to 1d6 plus your attack's ability modifier. If the target is within the weapon's normal range, so not the extended range, it becomes a d8 instead. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if just because you're think
about it. It's like you're throwing it harder within that first set of range. So no, you don't have disadvantage on accuracy.
But here's my problem. It's both. So not only am I not getting disadvantage on ranged, I'm also increasing the damage on any weapon I throw, and I'm increasing damage on weapons thrown within their range.
To a d8.
But most thrown weapons are a d4 to a d6. So
the javelin, I feel like
I think it's only a d6.
Is it really?
So again, a javelin will go up to a d8 within its standard range and remain a d6 in its first. I just don't know if both of these are
D6.
I don't know if both of these are correct. I don't know if giving me basically you're saying that the max range of the weapon is my range. That's one ability. But then you're saying that if it's within the shorter range, it's more damage. And anything that's tiny, a dagger, a hatchet, anything that I can throw is now increased in damage. I don't know if I like both of those. That's my thing. Balancing wise at third level, I wouldn't mind this over time. But both right out the gate, and we haven't even got to the third one yet, I'm skeptical.
Okay.
I'm just okay. I feel like it's giving a lot.
I'm not quite mad at it yet. Because when you look at damage, like you could just choose a weapon as a fighter that does 2d6 damage, right? Like you could just choose a weapon as a fighter that does 1d12 damage. And so giving you like a d8, and yes, it's thrown, and yes, it's ranged, and I get that we don't want to do like massive damage, but again, that is the bread and butter of this class. So far I'm not too upsetty spaghetti about it, but I think
I don't know, maybe for me it's just adjusting the range and damage is, I don't know, just a little bit too much. What does Hecate say? Hecate says, I'm going to agree with Vortex on that from a DM point. Yeah, I just feel like adding both, right? I think the range, beautiful. Mm-hmm. Adding the range for Shinobi, gorgeous.
Of course.
This early on, also damage, I would at least want to wait till level 6. Minimum level 6 to add the damage change. Personally.
No, we're not saying they're adding a d6 plus the ability.
No, they're just changing. Basically what this is saying is any thrown weapon that you do will do a minimum d6. So regardless of what the weapon should do, it'll do a minimum d6.
Okay.
And if it's within range,
so it's kind of like what the monk does, because the monk makes your unarmed attacks basically this.
But if it's within its standard range, it's shorter range, right? Mm-hmm. The 3120. If it's within 30, it goes up to a d8. So it's basically any weapon you throw will be a d6, and if it's within short range, it's a d8. What combat is outside of the stand? Like, on average, if you average out every combat you've ever been in, more times than not, you're within range of a thrown weapon. More times than not.
As a wizard, I stay away from that. I will say, just
as a martial class.
Not as a martial class.
And so my point being is but even when combat starts, you're rarely outside of 30 feet. Like combat usually starts. Like I'm just saying that it's asking a lot, or it's giving a lot. It is asking a lot from the DM to approve this much at level 3. That's all I'm saying. It's at level 3. Not that these two things are bad together,
right? For
the class, but at level 3, just to here you go. You're a fighter. now you're doing more damage with weapons than you should. No other fighter gets to pick up a weapon and change its damage. No other fighter subclass picks up a weapon and instantly upgrades its damage. No other fighter does that. But no other class, no other subclass gets rid. Even a ranger,
that'll do that.
But a ranger, as its own subclass, doesn't get rid of its disadvantage at range. You would think a ranger of all classes would default to not having disadvantage at range.
Well, I would say you would want to make sure that ranger, because rangers could be melee or ranged.
Right.
But so if there was a subclass of ranger that was focused on range, kind of like this one is,
you would expect
I would very much agree with that.
Yeah, so that's all I'm saying is I just think that as asking for bolts a little bit much, but let's go through this last one. So the other one is tactical recall. You've also learned to recall your thrown weapons with thin strings. Okay, so I like that there's a non-magical component.
Okay.
As a bonus action, you can recall a number of light weapons within 60 feet of you that were thrown as part of your attack action. You can recall a number of weapons equal to your proficiency bonus. I'm going to put a pause on that one. I'm going to let you talk about that because I got to step out of the room real quick. I think that's too many.
Interesting.
I think it's too many.
So let's take a gander, because at 3rd level, let me make sure we are looking at a +2. So right now at 3rd level, I can do 2, and I can't do more than that until I hit 5th level. I don't think 2 is too much, because if it was just 1, I would feel like it's very underutilized. Like I'm not really doing much with it, especially if I want to throw something with my offhand. I would like to be able to have this feature work with this. Now, the whole purpose is when you level up in attacks, you can do this with all the things that you throw, because you're not going to just be able to spam throw all of these. So having the number of items you can use this on roughly equal to the number of attacks that you can do, I feel like sounds fair. And so, especially if I can use something with my offhand, I think that that's not too bad. Again, once you hit 5th level, guess what? You get extra attacks, so then you're going to be able to throw 3 in a round. So, starting at 3rd level, you get 2, right? And so only being able to do 1 at this point, I feel like would be too little, especially if you want to throw anything with your offhand. I feel like it would kind of suck to be able to throw 2 things out there and only get 1 of them back, right? And my thought process is, like, this is likely going to scale with the number of attacks you can do per round. And so far, that's seeming to track, with the exception of your action surge. So if you were to action surge on any of these times, you wouldn't be able to use this particular feature and actually get the item back. But at 5th level, when it finally bumps to 3 proficiency bonus, so you'd be able to do this 3 times, that's when you get extra attack. So 2 with your attack and then 1 with your bonus. So that's where I'm sitting thus far. Again, even once you get a 4 proficiency bonus, you don't get your 2nd extra attack until 11th level. So you got 2 levels where you can technically do it on 4, and so that would be the 2 or 3 levels you could technically use your action surge and get your action surged 1 back.
So Hecate says, I don't mind it, but it just seems like a lot, and I love getting it later for scaling. So Hecate, I'm leaning towards what you're saying, but
are we talking about for this one or the last one?
For this one, just the leveling. I think he's just like wants to see more. So here's my logic to it. Here's the reason why I say it's too much. Proficiency bonus, not at this level, but proficiency bonus is the too much. It's not about how much you get right now. It's total. And the reason for that, my logic, is it's not magical. So my logic is that it should start with 1, as in your primary weapon can be recalled. As in, I can maintain, as a human being, my primary weapon is attached to me via string. So at a certain point, I can always maintain my primary weapon physically on me, and I know where the line goes. I know who's stomping over it and how much slack there is. Like, I'm very pedantic, people, but things matter. You told me this is a slack line. There can only be so much slack. it can only go so far. It's not going to go the 120 distance. You're not going to throw that 120 and have a slack line that you can call back. I'm not going to buy that. I'll give it its minimum range, 30 feet, right? But you're telling me with my proficiency bonus, you're telling me that I don't care that I'm 20th level and very powerful. You're telling me that I'm going to be mindful of 6 strings attached to my body when I'm fighting people I'm going to be mindful of 6 things attached to my body in a battlefield full of, I do get
I'm
what
being
you're pedantic. I'm being pedantic. I get it. But from a high point of view, telling me that a human being can handle up to knowing where
20th level isn't getting close to godhood.
But godhood in sense of power, not in sense of mind. Like, it's still a human. Think about this. Think about 6 things attached to your belt that have gone out of you, and you have to think, when you turn, where are the strings? When someone steps over, like, all I'm saying is it's being pedantic, but when you say this is not magical, when you say this is not a supernatural feat, when you say it's a physical thing, I'm not saying this is right. I'm just saying from high point. So from my point of view, if you told me starting at 3rd level, your primary weapon can be attached, at 6th level, you can attach a secondary, and maybe at higher levels, a 3rd, that makes sense, because up to 3 items, you can kind of understand where they are. But when you tell me, again, just 6 things are out there and I'm attached to that many items, you're not paying attention to that and the battlefield. I'm sorry, but and then the crisscross, you're just saying that it never crisscrosses, they never tie in knots, no one ever trips over them, you didn't throw it 2x. What happens if you throw a 1? You roll a 1, does it go too far and now you have tension on it? Does it snap the line so you can't? There's too many things happening, in my opinion.
I do think that would be a fun way to deal with,
I would. As a
like
DM, I would. But I don't want to deal with 6. As a DM, I will give you 3. Your primary, a secondary, and a random bonus tertiary at later levels. But at 5th level, you're a peasant at 5th level. You're not taking care of 3 different things on the battlefield. You're barely keeping track of who enemies are. I'm sorry, but that's just my viewpoint as a DM on how, and this is, again, viewpoint not from player, but from character point of view. When you give me details like these are physical strings attached to me, I don't buy that you're keeping track of all of that and not tripping over it. Your buddies aren't tripping over it. The enemies aren't tripping over it. They're not getting tangled. They're not, like, what if you try to pull it back and it's under a rock? What if you moved 30 feet? If you threw 3 daggers out and then moved 30 feet, are they just being dragged across the ground? What if they get caught? What if you run around a tree? Are they now wrapped around? Do you just get to pull? I'm sorry. I care about the words. So when I think you're tethered to these things, and you're running around, jumping up, climbing down ladders, being knocked down a cliff, what are all the things? I can't unthink that.
I will say that it would be something that would be slightly overly challenging to deal with as a DM, especially if your player's not thinking about it. To be honest, I think that this feels like something that would be more immediate rather than something that's just hanging out there on the battlefield.
As in you throw it and then you immediately retract it.
I feel like the intent is for it to be more of like, none of the stuff is hanging out on the battlefield. It's like,
it's not like you threw it and then 2 rounds later.
It's almost like I can do it multiple times in a turn rather than having 6 things out all at once. You know what I'm saying?
In that respect, I totally agree with you, right? Like, there's ways about it, and that's why I totally preface this with, it's pedantic.
But I do get what you're saying. That would be very challenging, but theoretically, even if it was, like, when I look at things like Naruto, when I look at other types of feats that are done in, like, different types of animes, and the idea that a lot of people that play this game want to see how they can make themselves feel like these characters, like be able to do these things, you know, like I'll see something on a new show that I'm watching, I'm like, bro, I want to try and make that. I want to see how doing something like that would be possible in this game, you know. I want to believe that stuff like that is possible.
Yeah. And I don't disagree with you. I 100% understand where the mindset's coming from. It's just that I believe that there are ways to accomplish it, and then there are ways that are believed. I believe that there are ways to accomplish it narratively and mechanically, but I also believe that there are ways that sometimes delve or lean into the hand wavy. It just looks cool, so let it happen. And this is on that borderline, right? I'm feeling like I don't mind where we're going with this. I don't mind this idea of being able to recall your weapon. Boomerang is a cool thing. I don't mind having a non-magical version of that. But when you tell me that you can have 6 items, because when you're talking about like it's supposed to be instantaneous, then just give me more attacks per round. But when I can have 6 individual things all at once, it tells me that it's intended to have 6 items that I can throw and then recall into it. It's just one of those things where why not just give me the skill that any item I throw? Why is it linked to the number of like it's because it's not saying this is how many you can do per round, it's how many you can have go out and then still recall.
You can recall a number of light weapons within 60 feet of you that...
So again, as one bonus action, would I read this as if I have 6 proficiency points, right? If I have 6 proficiencies, I can throw 6 daggers and in one bonus action, bring them all back. That's my problem because it says you can recall your thrown weapons. I'm assuming all of them with strings. As a bonus action, you can recall a number equal to your proficiency. So as one bonus action, a number equal to. So that tells me if I have 6 proficiency bonuses, right? Proficiency points, I can throw 6 weapons out and with one bonus action, recall them all at once. But if I don't have 6 actions, if I don't have 6 attacks, that means I throw 2 daggers out, I wait till my next turn. Throw 2 daggers out, I wait till my next turn. I throw 2 daggers out, I wait till my next turn, bonus action, I get them all back. That's my problem.
Well, it does say as a part of your attack action, so it has to be the turn that you threw them.
But through the last one. So I can throw 2, throw 1, throw 1 bonus action, get them all back. It has to be a part of the last attack action, but not a part of every, because it's a number of weapons equal.
Actually,
and you can't throw 6 weapons.
Actually,
so there's
that's crazy because I was thinking you could do it as a bonus action. So at first level, the only thing this allows you to do is to do 2 specifically with your action surge at this level.
Yeah.
But later, like any bonus action one would be pretty much pointless.
Exactly. Because it's the bonus action that recalls all of them.
It says attack. Oh, that's very true.
So it's basically you have to use this bonus action to recall them, but this bonus action has to be used along with an attack action.
Interesting.
But that does mean I can.
Oh, we got a Pokeniner in the chat.
Oh, Pokeniner, good job, you're here. So yeah, so what I'm reading this as is round 1, I throw 2 daggers. Round 2, I throw 2 daggers. Round 3, I throw 1 dagger. I throw the 6th dagger, bonus action, recall all of my daggers.
Interesting.
So now
be able to have,
but now, and we're talking about like 18th level, but now do you understand why I'm saying this is where it falls apart for me logistically is you're telling me that for 4 turns, I'm keeping track and no one's tripping. None of my...
I wouldn't say it would be 4 turns. I'd say at that level, you would be able to use all your action surges.
But then at that point, you're still not getting 6
turn.
attacks, though. Like I still don't think you're getting that many items thrown out there by that point. You know?
So again, like looking at the base class for, you get your 2nd extra attack by 11th level. Now, I don't know if you want to go find a Crawford ruling on this, but
no, okay.
But I believe that the way the attack action works is when you use. When you have like extra attack, that means that my action surge, it'll double.
Pokeniner just gave me what I needed. So it means that you can recall at any time, so long as they were thrown with the attack action. So that's the
even like 4 or 5 rounds later.
Do you see my problem now? So that's my problem with it is the way it reads is I can throw my weapons out up to however many have my proficiency modifier attached to me. And at any point, I spend a bonus action, and as long as I threw them with an attack action, not that I just dropped them, not that I stabbed somebody, I had to have thrown them.
And at any point, 60 feet.
And then they say, so now they're 60 feet long. So does my scenario of reality start to understand, like, this is why I think again, proficiency is too much. That, again, my only argument is not that I dislike the ability. Proficiency is the problem. I think what it should be, personally, is it starts out at level 3 with your main weapon. Totally understandable. Between 6th and 10th level, a secondary. And between 13th and 20th, a tertiary. To me, I could fully understand up to 3. But equal to your proficiency bonus, I just think that in my logic of battlefield command and understanding and individual attention, I do not believe that without magic, an individual character is paying attention that much. Like, it's just, I know I said this initially, I'm being pedantic. I am being a words lawyer. But this is how, but again, this is how I look at words, and you could be intelligent, that, like, you can have a one-time character convince me that you can do this, but a whole class, like, anybody being able to pick, like, again, generally anybody, I just don't think that this is a viable solution. So again, going down, I mean, Pokeniner, you've came in good. We're only at tactical throws. So
I like the idea that he was talking about. You could set up traps with them and do stuff like that.
And I don't mind the idea. I just think that there's just too much. So at this time, Pokeniner, to kind of give you a refresh, right? So by the way, just to give you a super refresh, loved the description. I was actually when I first read this, my initial idea was that Shinobi gives me the mindset that it should have been a rogue subclass with a fighter influence, but I see that you were going with the fighter subclass with rogue influence, and I was like, initially, like, I don't know which direction I think you're gonna go. I was against it, but your description, spot on, gave me a good idea of what you meant by fighter with a rogue influence. And right out the gate, I will say that once we read Skills of Shinobi, instantly you convinced me that this was going in the right direction. Skills of Shinobi instantly gave me the confidence that you had the idea of fighter with rogue influence, and it was the correct way to go with it. Now, with tactical throws, I absolutely love sharp range. Because you made sure in the description to say that this is intended for a ranged fighter, I think sharp range is 100% what we want to see. No other subclass deals with ranged thrown weapons. Every other subclass deals with martial, it deals with missile weapons, but no other subclass really focuses on a melee or like a thrown ranged weapon set. So I loved it. Now, in the improved throws concept, I'm not against it for this subclass. I just think that improved throws is way too much for 3rd level. I think that sharp range was perfect, but sharp range and improved throws, way too OP for 3rd level. You're basically overriding, like, no other subclass that I've ever known allows a class at any point to pick up a weapon and change its damage. And this at 3rd level is saying any weapon that has the thrown category or, the thrown weapon option, the property, instantly changes its damage. I think that's too much. And especially because you're not only changing the base damage period, but then you're changing the base damage to a 1d6 at the furthest range and a 1d8 at the closest range. That, on top of the fact that you don't have any disadvantage on the furthest range, I felt was too much. So in my opinion, sharp range was great. I think improved weapons or improved throw, I would love to have seen that anytime after 6th level. That's kind of where I was like, I love the two together. I love sharp range and improved throws. I just think it was a little bit OP at 3rd level. And the tactical recall, that's what you basically came in on when we were talking. So tactical recall, I really do like the idea of. I just think that equating it to proficiency bonus makes it logistically too much. I absolutely can't underscore how much I love that you made the recall non-magical, because we've seen boomerang as a magical option. There's been multiple ways I've seen magical abilities added to getting your weapon back.
There's just an artificer infusion that allows you to have a returning weapon.
Yeah,
just
there's so many ways to do it magically. I love that you went the direction of doing it non-magically. So with tactical throws, I think sharp range was amazing. I think that's 100% where we should be. I think improved throws should be pushed to a higher level. And I even like tactical recall. I think tactical recall is fine with sharp range. I don't mind that 60 feet sounds like a little bit much. I think it should only be used on 30. Again, logistically speaking, it's a rope, it's a thread. 60 feet's 60 feet's long.
60 feet is long.
I think 30 feet would make more sense with tactical recall. But my biggest argument I was making when you came in was that adding it to your tying it to your proficiency bonus sounds like too much. I think that it should start with your primary weapon. Maybe between 6 and 10 you get a secondary, and then after 12th or 13th level you get a tertiary. And my argument was that realistically, because it's non-magical, you're expecting the character, right? Like the in-game character, not only to non-magically make sure that they know what weapon they've thrown that's attached to them and how far it can go without snapping. If you threw it farther, it would I'm assuming just snap. But if you have it to your proficiency bonus, that means that at some point on the battlefield, I could have 6 strings, because I think 6 is the highest proficiency bonus you can
Correct.
get. So you can have 6 strings everywhere on the battlefield, and you're telling me that if I turn around in 360, my character has to remember to turn back around, otherwise I'm now mixed up. Or if I run around a tree chasing an enemy, do I have to remember that my strings are all tied up? And what happens if I threw one this way and then threw one that way, and then I turned around? Did they get for me, it's just, I'm pedantic, I care about words, and so when I think that the player actually has these things attached to their character, I don't mind that. I don't mind 1, 2, maybe even 3 as you level up, but up to 6 just sounds too much. It does. I don't care how intelligent the character is, without magical means, having 6 strings up to 60 feet away just tied to my character, and no one's tripping on them. They're not getting tied up. There's no roll to bring back your weapon, right? There's no roll to maybe that the string breaks. It's just that I feel like if you're gonna do that, just make it magical. Just make it something that can't be undone. But when you add the physical element, when you say that this isn't magical and it's a skill set, when you say that it's a learned technique, I put more scrutiny on it. I put a little bit more weight on logistics and whether or not it makes sense, because magic can undo a lot, right? Magic can just say it does things, right? You can teleport with magic and be fine. But a physical string that's attached to something that I threw, that also means that if I didn't intend to throw it further than, the 60 feet, because, right, the harder you throw something, the further it's supposed to go, which means that if I only want to throw it within its range, I know how hard to throw it, otherwise I'm going to snap the string, right? So that means that it can only go so far before hitting the string and then popping back. So there's just these things that I think of when I think of it's physically attached, is what's the likelihood that you're going to be able to manage all of that in combat? And that's why, for me, I personally, from High Point, wholly just from High Point, I don't know if I can justify having that many strings out. I like the idea. I think that sharp range and tactical recall are the 2 things that should be in tactical throws. I think improved throws should be later. And I think
the whole of improved throws, or just that one part?
I think improved throws in general should just be a later ability. The ability as is, I just think it should come at 6th or 7th level. And then tactical recall, I think just needs to be nerfed down to your primary weapon and then up to 3 weapons total. But that's just how I would rule it.
I definitely,
and I know I'm a little bit more realistic than most.
I see where you are coming from on that, and I'm kind of on the fence still, but I'm not fully convinced that it's bad.
It's not. I'm not trying to say it's OP. I just don't like the logistics.
Yes,
that's all I'm saying.
It's not even train.
It's not even overpowered. It's just logistically, I think it's messy, and that's. I said it was pedantic. It is. It's 100% pedantic. Yeah. Don't take me seriously, y'all. This is just how.
No, but that's again. It speaks to a lot of how we like the things that we value in our worlds, right? The
Yeah.
things that we value in what we're creating and what we're building. It's like it's important that all of this stuff cohesively works together, because you never know, like something as small as that, like imagine the precedents you're setting for other things to happen, for other things to occur. Earlier Hecate was talking about how some of his players might abuse a feature such as this.
Yeah.
So like I get the mindset, but for me, my attitude is
I'm
gonna
love using
use it
loopholes.
towards I'm gonna use it towards being focused on how I feel like it was intended to be played and how it was intended to be used.
I will say this.
Versus
I will say this. As a 5th edition application, it's on point. It hits all of the vibes of 5th edition. Keep in mind that my critique is the compatibility with High Point, but I will give it the credit that it is on point with 5th edition, and it doesn't feel OP for 5th, it feels OP for High Point.
I get that.
But it doesn't feel OP for 5th edition. Hopefully that makes more sense. And then let's see. So we did have some stuff from Pokeniner I wanted to catch up on. So it was with the 60 feet. I think 60 feet's way too much. Even from a 5th edition point of view, 60 feet's a lot. I really think 30 feet makes better sense.
I get 30 feet, but again, you're a ranged class. Like if you're a ranged class and you're limited to 30 feet,
only to recall though, not to your. Remember,
yes.
You're
max
losing
range is
losing the
extended.
disadvantage for the max distance, but the recall I don't think should be that far, because any other ranged character loses their ammo. No other character gets to reclaim their ammo. I don't think anything, because again, the 30 feet is like you're protecting yourself, right? It's like your defensive area.
To 120.
Because if you're a ranged fighter, right, you want to be, you want to keep distance, right? So I would think that if someone's within 30 feet of you, you want to recall your weapons because
20 to 60.
You know what I mean? Like you need to keep like defending yourself. But beyond 30, you're assuming you're in a defensive position. So that's my logic to it. I think 60 just sounds like a lot.
60 is the long range of a dagger. So with a 60-foot range, you would be able to use a dagger at its full extended range with no disadvantage and still be able to recall it.
That's still a lot to me. I think 30 is more than enough for this ability. But Pokeniner says you can set up the traps. So here's the explanation. Fighters are the most skillful and knowledgeable in using high damage weapons. Okay. I don't disagree with that. The biggest issue in 5e weapons for Throne is that they are incredibly weak. I don't disagree with that. This encouraged a way to enable them to keep up with other powerful weapons. I can understand that, absolutely. And made a neat sweet spot archetype. I see where you're trying to go with that. I think this is I don't even think this is an argument of balancing. I think this is an argument of DM approach.
Yeah.
This isn't even like again, I can respect what's been built for 5th edition. It doesn't work for High Point.
Yeah.
But this doesn't feel the standard, this is OP in general. So I will give you that, Pokeniner, that I think you are hitting a more sweet spot archetype specifically for 5th edition, 100%. So no thrown weapon with the light weapon can exceed 60 feet. So the idea is that you can throw it instantly and recall it after the hit. So at its max distance, right? So like you said, a dagger at 60 feet. So I get that. I get that it kind of just makes you, I don't know. I still feel like maybe my issue then is that it's too early for 60 feet. So maybe what it should maybe at 3rd level it should be 30 feet. And then after 10th level, it should be 60. So you get the full range. Maybe that's my problem. Is if that's the case where your standard light thrown weapons is a max of 60, I 100% understand the desire.
Does it have to be light? Or is it just thrown?
As about light weapons. Only light weapons can be recalled.
Okay.
From tactical recall, only light weapons.
That's good to know. Was that in there?
Yeah, it just says you can recall a number of light weapons within 60 feet. And it's because light weapons max at 60.
Yes.
So
okay.
I don't know. I still think that if you're gonna do the 60 feet, maybe it should be later. Maybe it should be after 10th level, right? Because then you've seen your max, right? You've come into your max. Maybe that's the better the thing that could be done is starting at 3rd level you get 30 feet. At 10th level you get the 60 feet. That way, all thrown weapons, all light thrown weapons, immediately come back to you after thrown. And like you said, it would be just like instantaneous.
Yeah.
So as long as you have the bonus action. So the subclass delves into the fighter mastering this tactical recall, so it may become more believable that they can do this at higher levels. The tactical recall is going to be a reoccurring theme in the subclass, so we're going to see this more and more.
Okay.
So yeah, so maybe just that. Maybe I would just suggest at this early level, just keep it at the 30 feet, and then anywhere between 6 and 10, give it 60 feet.
So
that way, again, you earn the max. You still earn it. It's just not this early. Maybe it just feels like at third level, it's a little bit too early to see the full potential.
Interesting.
Because nothing should be seen at full potential at third level, right? Like, this is literally, you've just decided to become this.
He's going to be coming back to this, and this is a big thing. So
this
is its introductory potential.
That's 100% true, though. So we do got to take that into account. That's true. So we'll see. We'll see if this gets more balanced over time. Imagine if the weapons were poison coated, says Hecate. Also notice that the tactical recall only works on light weapons, which also helps with the recall. A lot of them, yeah. And I do agree that light weapons is a good stop.
I do too.
I just feel that
I was looking at the javelin like you first mentioned, and I was like, God, how would that work?
But I'm still thinking that, again, third level. I just chose this subclass. I should not see its full potential. That's my only argument against the 60 feet. I should not see its full potential the moment I select it. 30 feet would be amazing at third level. Up until sixth level...
I agree that, like, at third level, that's really all you need. Like,
yeah. I think anywhere between 6 and 10 should be the time it clicks over. I gotta go check on something real quick. I'll be right back.
By all means. So... I'm very interested to see how this scales. I really do like the direction that it's going so far. Like you get to use a lot more thrown weapons. It's way more versatile. I'm not even wholly upset about the improved throws. I like the fact that you get a standard. It kind of gives me a reminiscent idea of how Monk's unarmed attack does. And I do think it's very interesting that you do the ability's attack modifier rather than just the stat modifier. Because normally on versatile weapons, your damage roll only gets the dexterity modifier, not dexterity and proficiency bonus. So having that little addition in there in your improved throws, I also think that was a very interesting piece. And again, like you said, because you're trying to scale with a lot of the other high damage weapons that you have possibly to choose from. I will say, even so, like, as you level up in any fighter subclass, you're gonna get an excessive amount of more attacks. So the attack economy that you get in the fighter class is gonna scale no matter what. So being able to feel like you're able to put out damage in this class, because again, when you're a fighter, like, what is your primary advantage? Again, going back to that original conversation about being a fighter with a little bit of rogue versus a rogue with a little bit of fighter. Yes, rogues do big damage when they hit their
they only get to do it once,
attacks, but they only get to do it once. That's it. But fighters, they're about putting out consistent damage, and I think that's what this, because it's almost you feel like pointless if you're a fighter and you're rocking 2 daggers, like you're doing 2d4s every turn, like what are you doing as a fighter out here?
And that's why I totally feel this, and that's why I'm already seeing right now we go from 3rd to 7th. That's where I feel like even more so having this subclass drop the 60 feet at level 6 right before, because again with this subclass we're going straight to 7th, right? So we have nothing between 3 and 7th. That could have been the time to give them a couple levels with 30 feet and then bump them up to 60 feet.
Yeah, and I could even yeah.
I just think that's my biggest thing. And then improvised throws, I don't know. Personally, I think I would move. I like the idea of being able to increase the damage because you're a fighter, so you can do more with it. I still don't think it should be the first thing you can do. I think you need to, like any subclass, I feel like you need to, because the subclass is a progression. I feel like you need to work into things. This feels like you're giving everybody the best of this subclass right out the gate. The furthest distance and increased damage. It feels like it should be a taste of what's to come. Give me the ability to recall at small distances, then later up the damage and then increase the distance.
And you could even just like add a line in here. So even with improved throws, imagine if you didn't get a D6 and it was just whatever your base is, that's what you get. And then it would be like at later levels, it'll increase to a D6 or it'll increase to a D8 or whatever the case may be. And do the same thing with
the sharp
tactical
range,
recalls. Like you started off at 30 feet and then at later levels.
And I think the reason is, I think my biggest, I think the thing I haven't really just stated enough is that I think it's because sharp range is not getting enough focus in this. That alone, I think, is what's really the cornerstone, one of the biggest cornerstones I see out of this class. Being able to not have disadvantage at that range, being able to literally have huge. A thrown weapon at max range, to me, is what stands out about this third level. So the other two, right? Like the increase in damage, that's secondary. The fact that I can throw it 120 or, I guess because sharp range, it just, that's not light. Remember, the only thing that's required light is the tactical recall.
You're not going to get it back, but you can do the javelins.
That's my point, is that's the cornerstone for this. So being able to change the damage of a thrown weapon, I think, is valid.
I'm actually curious.
But comes secondary to the range, right? The recall, I think, is great, but deserves to be earned over time. I don't know if a max recall is immediately accessible.
Out of curiosity, why would a dart not be a light weapon? It's a dart.
Because of the weight. Because a dart is typically small, but in order to get it the distance and the arc, you need very heavy.
A dart would likely be heavier than a dagger?
Because we're not talking about a dart for the game. A lawn dart. Do you ever play lawn darts?
Is that what they're talking about when they're talking about darts?
When you're talking about a dart for a weapon, you're not talking about a dart for the game darts. You're talking about a lawn dart. So you're talking about a 2-3 pound weapon. You're not talking about a 3-ounce dart, a blowgun. You're talking about a lawn dart that is 2-3 pounds. If I remember, long darts, I think in the book are 1 pound each. Darts.
I'm curious. I want to go look to see what they call daggers, because I know daggers are heftier than most people think. Because a dagger
isn't a pocket knife that we think of.
Exactly.
A dagger is a stiletto.
It's a hefty blade.
It's like a 1 foot blade.
Very much so.
Which is always funny because people think daggers aren't that.
Like the little pocket knife.
Yeah, no, daggers are a big deal. Why I don't know why dart ain't light. Yeah, I think it's a darts is just because you think about lawn darts. I think they're supposed to be a pound each, and they're supposed to be hefty. Let's see. So what do we got here? I feel like that's really bad. Fighters are doing their best weapon stuff at the start. So why should the special throwing fighter still be left behind with the later levels? I feel like they should reach that ASAP and not feel lacking. D6 isn't crazy. So again, a lot of fighters do get a lot of stuff up front, and this might be, again, more of a critique about how Wizards of the Coast does their progressions. But for me, being able to set something aside, right? Being able to have a subclass that sets itself apart from the rest, I think is important for a subclass. But two things that I think are the biggest issue of why you don't want to fulfill your destiny too soon, right? Why you don't want to see your full potential is, one, we've talked about this, where there are subclasses who give you a crap ton by level 5, and then you don't see shit till after level 10. And we've talked about the idea that it doesn't matter how strong you are early on, that type of
you're not doing anything.
Yeah, that type of a gap is just I'm the same that I've always been for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 levels. It doesn't feel good to just be who you are the whole time, right? I think that there is absolutely a bigger benefit to being drip fed your character than big, huge jumps, right? That's why I like 2nd edition over 5th edition. 2nd edition, I felt like there was a lot more happening because you had things like proficiencies every few levels, then you had feats every other couple levels, then you had major class level ups.
A lot of those things give you customizations in between there.
Exactly.
Which is kind of why I like Fighter, because as we saw last time we did a Fighter subclass, you get so many ASIs, which give you the ability to add
so much
feats,
customization, right?
And you can do so many cool, unique things. And so no two fighters are really going to be able to be the same. You'll be able to like point yours, and a lot of people are going to try and do the min-max thing. So yes, you might see a lot of repeat things, but there's a lot of options for you to go through and a lot of ways you can specialize.
So one of my things is that I think my biggest issue with like giving something too soon is that it's not rewarding enough to the player to get everything and see their max potential at the very end. And two, I feel like the second part about giving stuff too soon and seeing the potential too soon is that it doesn't allow for learning how to use the player or how to use the class, right?
I do agree with
if
that.
you start out with, say, something like the recall at 30 feet, you have to be more strategic. You have to be more tactical about using it early on. You have to understand when is it beneficial, how is it beneficial. And then as you learn that in more of a stressful environment when you're closer to the enemies, use it more as a defense. The mindset is you can learn to use it more as an offense at later distances. Because I'm also looking at this as you are a ranged fighter, which means that there's a distinction between you being up close and personal and you being at distance. So typically when I look at progression of abilities to a character or to a class, typically it starts inward and then grows outward, right? So you typically start like mages. A lot of the early spells can be looked at as like there's a good amount of defensive spells early on, and later, like the higher level spells are more offensive, right? And I think that's indicative of how you want to play the character. You have to be a little bit more defensive early on because you're a class cannon. Later down the road, you don't worry as much because you know you can stop that gap, right? You know you can stop an enemy before he gets to you. But early on, you need to be at a distance, right? You are that glass cannon. All of your allies are in front of you and you're in the back. Whereas later down the road, you're not worried about not having that buffer because you know you have powerful enough spells to make that buffer more impactful. And that's what I feel about this, where it's like that 30 feet shouldn't be used automatically like I'm this character, I can get all the way out there. It's more of that 30 feet should be that I'm the ranged guy, but I need to make sure that, you know, I have a defensive cover, that 30 feet of I need to cover this area, and then I learn how better to utilize that over time. So that's my approach to it, and why I would say that while Fighter does have a lot front loaded, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that everything is better off done over time because it allows people to specialize in what they're doing, and it better plays to the build of the character, because having long amounts of time where you don't learn anything, or even if you quote unquote get stuff right over time, if you're not really expanding, right? If all of the stuff you get is at its max, right? If I get an ability and I know that ability is never going to get better, we've talked about this a lot in these reviews. When you get something early on and it never changes, it just feels like it either is gonna, it either has to be just immediately beneficial, or you know you're gonna stop using it.
But and I think that's Pokeniner just mentioned a couple of times, like there's not spoiling anything, but more to come. There's more.
And we're still we're still in level 3. We're still super like we're still super here. But again, this is just personal opinion. I feel like it isn't too soon. It isn't even on the level with the best weapons, and it's only a power average weapons. And that's totally fine. But we still have to get through the rest of them. And again, this is where it's just more of a. I think this is less of my opinion on this particular piece and more of an opinion piece, like I've always done with every one we've done for the last like 2 months. It's more of my critique of Wizards of the Coast and how they have made level progression. I am very much, I think at this point I can confidently say I'm very much against how Wizards of the Coast does level progression. I do not think that they have a very valid way of, I don't think any of the classes are on par with each other. They all feel, if you compare any class level up with any other class, they're all kind of all over the place, and I don't think that as a party cohesion,
I think they try to balance it with like giving these people more here and less here, and over here they like spread it out more even, and over here they try to like move around the chunks.
I think they're looking at it too mechanically and not so much in a narrative way. I don't feel like the progressions make sense from a narrative perspective, only from a pure mechanical numbers perspective. And I think that's why I have a lot of critique on how leveling works in Wizards of the Coast Standard, because we've made this comment a lot. More times than not, we want to see more things happening more often, not necessarily more powerful things happening. I think you and I are always on that field of, these are great abilities that they're giving us, but couldn't we have had something smaller or something half of this in between and then got to this, right? I think that's where you and I are typically with Wizards of the Coast, is they have these great benchmarks, but they're few and far between, and we want more.
I definitely love the idea of stacking things, of things getting better over time, and building upon foundations rather than just giving you 20 cards in your deck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. And Pokeniner is saying that, it won't stagnate as much as we think. We're going to learn a little bit more about the maneuver and the hide as we go along. So I'm glad that those are going to be recaught up. And I know that we're making a lot of claims really early on. This is just what we do. But, as someone who, just tries to look at it from a DM and a player point of view, this does sound like, from any other point of view, this sounds like you're handing a lot at third level to one player in the party. You know what I mean? And not just from the party perspective, it just does sound like it just sounds like I'm getting a lot. Like, again, if all of my weapons are at 60 feet, automatically recalling them at their max range just kind of sounds like a lot right out the gate, right? I feel like I should earn that from a player point of view. So that's just my initial reaction, but we are only at level 3. We have plenty of levels to go, so let's continue and see if we can find them better balancing. Hecate says this is getting like a baby chicken with a gun at level 3 in my head instead of a sword. I mean, yeah, that might be a little bit more than I'm thinking, but I get where you're going with this. And then Pokeniner says, I don't believe players will stagnate as they learn how to be the sweet spot gamer, trying to find those moments to pounce and to hide.
I want to see how those mechanics he's talking about play out. Let's. Yeah.
All right, so after tactical throws, we don't see anything until level 7. So as a fighter, after level 3, what are we expected to get? So we've gotten the ability to do the sharp range, so we can throw weapons at their mass distance without disadvantage. We upgrade standard damage to a D6 or a D8, depending on the range that we're going, and we can recall weapons up to 60 feet. So after we get all of that, what are we doing until level 7?
Ability score improvement or a feat.
Okay.
At 4th level, you get extra attack. At 5th level, and another ability score improvement at 6th level. So potentially 2 feats and an extra attack.
And we've already talked about this with fighters. That they are one of the most versatile classes because of these things right here. Mm-hmm. They get probably the most customization throughout their development. So at this point, we're at what, 3 feats?
2. Unless you're human, because you can get a feat from creation as a human.
Right, and I don't know why, but I always default to human fighters. But okay, so you get 2 feats by this point, which could, especially with, you have Archer,
Sentinel.
Sentinel.
Well, actually, Sentinel not so much, because that's way more melee.
Well, no, because there's other ones that specifically do. There's some feats that specifically target ranged melee. Like thrown weapons, right? I think there's one.
Possibly.
I think there's a couple, because I want to say that there's one that allows you to. No, I'm thinking that's the 2nd edition one. Never mind. Because there is a proficiency that allows you to throw with your offhand equal to your. But I don't think 5th edition has offhand throwing. Does it?
Does.
Oh.
It does. So but it's just tied in with your dual wielding type deal, like being able to use your offhand for your attacks, whether they're melee or ranged.
Okay. And then anything at 7th level for fighter standard?
No, just your capstone feature.
Okay, so we're just gonna get a couple. Gonna get a couple ASIs or a couple features. Subclass. So Pokeniner says fighter subclasses aren't designed in 5e to take the focus of the fighter, but instead give unique identity to the fighter, as you're always will be a fighter. Subclasses tend to build upon the same mechanics slowly or in new ways due to that creativity in fighter. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, they don't subclasses don't tend to harp on fighter as they do specialize the fighter into some uniqueness. Okay. So then we get those couple feats, we get a couple ASIs if we choose, depending on which way we go, and then we get to level 7, which is Thrown Cordon. Beginning at 7th level, your attacks can be useful even after missing a target. So this is kind of making sense of the traps that he was talking about.
Got you.
So after you miss a ranged weapon attack with one of your thrown weapons, you can use your reaction to transform it into a trap in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of the target. You can trigger this trap as part of your tactical recall and regain the weapon that caused it. The trap's save DC is equal to 8 plus your strength or dexterity modifier, your choice, plus your proficiency bonus. When you set a trap, choose one of the 2 options. Blade trap. Creatures within 5 feet of the trap must succeed a dexterity saving throw or take the weapon's damage. Smoke trap. Creatures within 5 feet of the trap must succeed a constitution saving throw or become blinded until the end of your next turn. You can create a number of traps equal to 1 plus your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. Let me think about this one for a second.
I love the ideas that we're putting here. Blade trap, just taking the damage because it's like cutting you on the way back out, or a smoke trap where it like detonates some sort of gunpowder or some dust something to potentially blind your enemy. Kind of like a Batman smoke
I think
bomb.
I'm getting caught up on the word trap, personally. Again, being pedantic, I'm trying not to go off on another tangent here. I think I'm getting caught up on the word trap. I think what I love about this is I like the idea that before you could throw your weapon, and I think this would play into what I was saying. I think at 5th or 6th level, if you went from 30 to 60 feet just as a progression, I think then this would make sense, right? Because then you would get this. Because you would start at 30 feet being able to recall, then you go up to 60 feet and be able to recall, then you would get this guy, up to 60 feet. I think what I would prefer on this particular one is, I think I'm getting caught up on the word trap. And I don't necessarily like the smoke part. I do like the blade idea. I like the idea that if you missed as a bonus, like I like the idea that this is more of a, if you miss on your next turn as a bonus action, you can recall the weapon with the DC check if they're, still in line of the weapon. And then you can basically get a additional hit. Like basically, if you missed, you get a secondary option to hit them. I love this idea. I really think that that's clutch. I just don't know if this is the way that I would go about it. Okay. I think the smoke trap is a little bit weird. I think it's a little bit out of place. I like the idea of saying that if I miss, I get a second chance at hitting them.
I think it's in place for the class, but I think it's kind of hard to articulate as far as mechanics and function.
And that's what I'm saying. I know I'm being pedantic here, but I do like the idea that if I throw this dagger and I miss the target on my next turn, as a bonus action, I can recall it.
Is it on your next turn?
Well, this is how I would say it. I miss you, right? I throw it and I miss you. On this turn or on my next turn, I can use a bonus action to recall it, and it has a chance to hit you again. Mm-hmm. So I could do that. I could throw it, miss you, and then recall it, and then still get a chance to hit you on this turn. I think that's cool. Or I miss you this turn, wait till my next turn, bonus action first to call it back, it hits you, and then I use another attack to throw it back at you, meaning I can hit you twice in a single turn. Either one of these, I like. I think that this is the ability I want to see from this. I want to see this option where if I miss, I basically get a free attack out of it. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that for this ability. I don't know if I understand the blinding part. I do think I understand either immediately after I miss or the next turn.
When you say you don't understand the blinding part, do you mean you don't understand why it would be here, or you don't understand how mechanically
Both.
It would go off?
I don't see it. I see the Shinobi part of the smoke bomb, but I'd rather that just be a different ability. I don't know if I think that a missed attack should then convert into a smoke bomb. I think that's logistically, I just think that's a little bit weird that you're not.
Yeah.
I as a DM don't like if this then that abilities. I don't like abilities that aren't chosen again. Like, I don't like the idea of, I'm going to do this, but if it fails, I'm doing this instead. It's like saying that, hey, I want to attack this guy, but if my dice fails, I'm going to do a different thing instead. I don't like that. I like the idea that you're going to try something and it either passes or fails. I don't like the well, if I fail, I don't have to worry as much.
I will say, though, that is, from what I understand, pretty in line with a lot of what goes on in the Shinobi mindset. It's like, hey, I'm going to try and do this thing, but I got a backup plan for my backup plan for my backup plan. Like, you know, if I throw this and it doesn't hit my target, then I'm going to do a replacement jutsu and turn it
Well, and that's why I love the idea of being able to, if I miss, it's basically a free attack, right? As a bonus action, I can use my miss for an attack. I love that. Right? Especially because we're thinking, what's the weapon that you have, like the kunai on top of a rope, right? Like you throw it.
Oh, yeah.
Like there is a weapon like that. So that's what I'm kind of thinking. It's like a version of that weapon, right? And that's why I'm like, I love that idea. I just don't know if personally I can get behind the smoke bomb part. I think that would just be a great secondary idea, like a secondary ability, right?
Right. Interesting.
But I get what you're saying though, like the idea of always having a backup plan.
Yeah.
I get that. But at that point, why not just say that through this class you also get daggers that can double as smoke bombs? Because why do my daggers only double as smoke bombs when I miss a target? Why couldn't I go and ninja vanish? Like, I mean, why couldn't I activate them when I'm using them?
I think that is a better, for me, a better question. Like, I think it would be cool, like, on a hit, I could, like, and I struggle with this too, especially because you were talking about, like, whether, like, these are physical things, they're attached to rope. So, like, I feel like the way that they're verbally talking about it thus far, I should have to say which one this is. Either it's a blade or it's a smoke bomb. And whichever one it is, that's great. So that's the trap you can use. So and if I hit you, I'm not hitting you for damage. I'm hitting you to blind you.
Okay, right? so you're kind of on my page, right? I get what you're saying with the Shinobi always as a backup plan, but D&D wise, giving someone a, well, if what you chose doesn't work, you're gonna get something anyway, is a very powerful thing, because you're basically always giving them a get out of jail free card. And that's the thing as a DM I have a hard time with. It's like magic saying, well, if my magic spell doesn't go off, I have a contingency that something else. It's like, that's really a lot to not have a failure. So my biggest thing is I love the idea that if I miss, I still get an opportunity to not miss that attack. I love it, right? Yeah. As a bonus action, I get to undo my miss. That's basically what it is. If I miss, as a bonus action, either this turn or next turn, I get to undo that miss and try again. Fucking love it. I just think that the either or, for me, I don't think it's out of place for the Shinobi. I think it's out of place for this ability. I think that the ability to set a trap is awesome. I just don't think that having a choice makes sense to me. But that's just that's just the direction that I'm going with it.
I do get that.
And I will also say this too. I love the idea that it's tied to tactical recall. Like, I think that that's kind of what clutches this for me. Like, this ability, again, we talked about this before, calling back to abilities, you know, bringing 100%. Abilities back and making them more. Because again, if you had this ability that you started out that you can get any of your light weapons back that are within 30 feet, then eventually you get them back within 60 feet. And then another level happens, and then when you recall them, you can attack the enemy that you missed the last round. That's telling me that this ability is getting better and better and better the more I level up, right? And that's that feel good that I like as a player. Now, I know that Pokeniner has gotten crazy in the chat, so let's catch up to what Pokeniner has updated us with. Let's see, Pokeniner, where did we start? So the fighting a bit of a second chance. Smoke traps are, okay, so here we go. So smoke traps are really there to sell the Shinobi idea. Okay. It was originally only the blade, but people wanted other options to really give the versatility in the moment of failure. So it seemed like this was a tried and tested opportunity, and through trials, people said, hey, this is great, but I want more than just that. Now, I can see where people would want more variety, but that's where, I mean, I guess I could see that it doesn't make sense to say that you have to call out, if I miss, it's either going to be blade or smoke. I know that's kind of weird to say because it's whatever.
Yeah.
But I still feel that it's very weird in a D&D mindset to be like, hey, if I miss, I get a laundry list of things that I get recouped,
and
right?
I think, again, I think it would be interesting if it wasn't if I miss, it becomes something different than what it was. It would be more like, hey, this is what I'm throwing, smoke or kunai, and
so what if it was?
So
it's almost like at like an earlier level, almost like it's like I almost want it to be like an imbuement, right? Like you can turn your daggers into a smoke dagger or a trap dagger, right? Like something along those lines, but it would make it almost too complicated. So yeah, I get the idea that people wanted more
simplistic mechanics,
and yeah, I understand that. Yes, the smoke absolutely does. Okay, so let's put it this way: the smoke does make the Shinobi class more Shinobi.
Very much.
I
so.
think it's the implementation and mechanics, right? The idea that the mechanics are given the option, I think, is the problem for me. So what I would like to see is, I think what would have been better is at a different level, either at 5th or 6th level, the Shinobi gets another feat to where they can, kind of like an artificer, can imbue and stuff. Basically, like they can take their weapons, like their light weapons, their light thrown weapons, and convert them into like smoke grenades. Because again, why is it that my dagger can only smoke grenade when I miss? Why can't I be holding it and ninja vanish? I feel like the smoke grenade isn't necessarily a bad thing with this trap, but I feel like it needs to be something other than the trap.
Do you feel like it would expend the item if you turned it into a smoke grenade? Because that's honestly,
I think there should be a limit of how many like you can have. Like I think it should be like you can only like I feel like the smoke grenade, I just feel like if it's only on my miss, it's almost a missed opportunity, because like the Shinobi idea, I should be able to use it whenever I want, right? I should be able to ninja vanish, I should be able to blind a target. I feel like the idea is solid. I just think that in this particular case, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense that the only time it's used is when I miss. Maybe that's where I'm getting caught up on, right? So I really do like the trap idea when you miss and in being able to recoup it. I just think that I don't understand how it makes sense that all of my daggers can be smoke grenades when I choose them to be, but only when I miss an enemy. You know what I mean? There's too much logic, too much leaps of logic that for me as a DM, I can't just accept all of that, right? I can't just be like, okay, cool, that works that way. It just doesn't work for me. But I know I'm pedantic. I know I get caught up in words. But let me get back to Pokeniner. So smoke traps. Smoke traps also played into the idea of helping you hide, which makes sense. Blinding the enemy. As such, if you missed, you still had a good way to hide. So if you missed them, you can then activate the smoke grenade and then go hide. Also really sells the late game fighter, making those 6 traps go off and put off an insane jujitsu trap, right? Throw a bunch of daggers, you recall them all, and then just smoke everywhere on the battlefield, right? That's kind of dope. Let me think here. Hold on. I'm trying to judge whether or not it should be I'm thinking like, what if I like for that ability, right? Being able to like just do the whole jujitsu, like the whole battlefield gets smoked off. But it's like, that would be more of an intentional thing, right? Like I'm just throwing daggers onto the ground as traps. Mm-hmm. Versus, I missed a whole bunch, so I might as well smoke out the battlefield. That's like where I'm trying to understand, does that make sense to, well, I missed, so at least I still have something, versus this is my tactic. I'm gonna throw these, make you think I missed, and then I'm gonna smoke the battlefield but have all my weapons back.
You will reach that.
Hagate says, imagine pocket smoke instead of pocket sand as a bonus action. Yes. Pocket smoke. Yeah. So the idea originally was that you'd slip the trap onto the strong to do something. because this thrown trap was still connected to the strings, like small flick of the wrist or something. Okay, you'll get the opportunity to use it. Out of just misses, you'll reach. Okay, so let's just keep on going. So yeah, I just think that, like, I don't know, maybe the smoke trap needs to be just introduced as something different than just right here. Maybe that's where I'm getting caught up. I like the idea of if I miss as a bonus action, I can try to hit them again by recalling it. I love that. I think that the secondary option for the smoke is where I'm getting lost. It just seems like it's almost too much of a, oh, you missed, don't worry, you still have an option. As a DM, you missed. I'm sorry. If you didn't have a backup plan, you didn't have a backup plan. Maybe that's just me being a strict DM and being more of an old school DM. I don't want my players to have such an easy way out. So maybe that's just my holdup. Because the more I think about it, that's the problem. The only problem I have with this is it's basically saying, oh, you missed? Don't worry. It doesn't matter if you missed. You still have something extra. It's like you need to know your tools better and not just have your tools have any option. And that's me as an old school DM, so I think that's my problem. It's not that it's a bad ability, I just think it's too generous.
Interesting.
But but I can be honest and say I understand the argument. Being more Shinobi, being able to hide, blind them, I fully understand where the argument's coming from. I'm not that generous of a DM. That's where I think my problem is.
Okay.
But moving on to 10th level. So anything from 7th to 10th level?
I honestly think it's a whole lot more of the same for between 7th to 10th level. Starting at 8th level, you get an ability score improvement. 9th level, you get your first Indomitable. Indomitable is that you can re-roll a saving throw that you fail. If you do so, you must use the new roll, and you can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest.
Okay.
So it's just like being able to redo one of your saving throws. I'm pretty sure there's no limit to what kinds you can do. It can be
right, just any saving throw.
It says, oh yeah, you go on. It says you go on. And then finally at 10th level, you get another martial archetype feature.
Okay. So 10th level, we get strategic setup. At 10th level, your senses have prepared you for combat no matter the time or place. You have advantage on initiative rolls and can't be surprised while you are conscious. Interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's almost like a free feat. Oh, wait.
Yeah. In addition, when entering initiative, you can use your reaction to make a single thrown weapon attack against a creature that you can see within range. If there is no target in range, you can throw the weapon to an unoccupied space you can see within range instead as part of your thrown coordinate feat. So this is kind of what I was just talking about, where you plan it. Okay, so let's break this down. So you get advantage on initiative rolls, and you can't be surprised. Okay. Phenomenal.
Love it.
Great. I
already plays into adding your proficiency bonus to your initiative rolls in the first place.
As a fighter with the rogue influence, I get the idea that you are hyper aware and hyper vigilant. I'm fully aware of those. I'm totally okay with advantage on initiative and can't be surprised. Using your reaction at the start of combat, using your reaction when entering initiative.
That's interesting. That's like you always surprise somebody. So like the second combat starts, I get to attack you before the turn order even begins.
So
it is just a thrown weapon attack.
But my biggest thing, I think.
But again, imagine if it's poisoned, and maybe that's all you need. I would say that's the first portion for me that's significantly like maybe I would have to think about it. Again, it is 10th level. And it's when you're entering into
this combat. Is one of those things where it's like the problem that I typically have with initiative being the trigger. I was gonna say the initiator, but when initiative is the trigger, the problem that I have with that is I'm not a fan of 5th edition's version of initiative. Like happens in Baldur's Gate all the time too, and 5th edition. the idea that when battle starts, you are in battle is a problem for me. I have a big issue in terms of just how battle should start and when initiative starts. So the idea that initiative starts mechanically, but narratively no one knows. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, so your dude just goes, throwing dagger. Like, even if it doesn't narratively make sense, you're just like, I'm throwing a dagger. Just because. Throwing a dagger. I don't like that guy. I don't know how he looks. I'm throwing a dagger. Like, initiative to me, narratively, is not an indicator of anything. Initiative is a preparatory of how the game's going to play out, but initiative doesn't indicate anything, right?
No.
And initiative is just a difference between what is real-time gameplay versus what is
Reminds me.
What's the term? Turn-based, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the difference. Like,
But-
to me, initiative just indicates we're going from open gameplay to turn-based.
In High Point, do you use dynamic initiative?
Yes.
Where every round you re-roll initiative?
Yes.
So that's one area where something like this would be very interesting, because it's like, okay, theoretically, if initiative is just to say what the turn order is, and like how long are we realistically going to be using that turn order, especially for people who have or use dynamic initiative, you know, is it going to be something that it's like, okay, I mean, clearly this isn't meant to trigger every single time on dynamic initiative, but if you enter into initiative, say if I just want to see, say if I'm following a guard, and I would put my players into initiative, you know, just to see, like, all right, they're gonna move.
Exactly.
Gonna move,
It's
stuff like that.
initiative
Yeah.
is just an indication of going from active live gameplay to turn-based. And another issue too is like, this is basically saying that your fighter is not only aware of everything, but you're going to react the moment something becomes hostile. You're just like, it again, narratively, it's one of those things that I like the idea that I love the idea of having advantage on initiative. I love the idea of not being surprised. I think those two are phenomenal. I'm just having a hard time with basically you get to start every battle with an attack. Like, you just get to start the battle, boom, I'm attacking. I don't even want to say it seems over OP. I just don't know if I narratively understand it. I like the other two. I think the initiative roll and the surprise is fine. I think even if the because like how sometimes the combat will start or an encounter will start and the team was surprised, and so there's a surprise round. I would even say if you can't get surprised and you have an advantage on initiative rolls, you can also go whenever there's a surprise round. Like any surprise round, whether it's ally or enemy,
for sure.
you're going on that round with everybody.
So I will say one of the things I like to do is, especially because it feels super wasted, but if you roll a nat 20 on initiative, you get an extra attack that turn. You just get to attack one more time. Not like you get the extra attack feature, but it's just like this round. Like if you could do 2 attacks, now you can do 3. If you can do 1 attack,
so you
now
get them
can do
one
2.
extra action.
You know,
basically because they're just ready for it,
you're
right?
just that ready. So like I kind of like I imagine if that's what this was, instead of you get to attack as you're entering initiative, imagine you just got 1 extra attack on your first round in initiative. Like that to me would feel better, not just like, oh my gosh, I'm instantly, before you can do anything, just for the fact that we're rolling initiative, like I walked into this room, this giant thing saw me, and now it's aggressive
and I'm
towards
just
me,
going
and
to
we're
attack it
entering
for
into
no
initiative.
reason because metadata says I'm in initiative.
Or-
And maybe that's my problem, is it's because initiative starting is meta knowledge. Your players don't know they're in fight yet. Like, initiative doesn't mean anything to your characters.
Because imagine if your group is getting ambushed, and even if you're not able to get surprised, and even if you see it coming, they're still technically in the midst of attacking when whatever's going down is going down. You know?
I think a free action wouldn't be bad. I mean, because I do like where Pokeniner is going with this in terms of being able to be ahead of a surprise. I really like that, being ahead of initiative. And I like the idea that he's trying to give the option to like pre-plan a trap, right? Like, I think that's the right direction to go. I think that like the free surprise round is where I'm having kind of an issue with it, but I see where the direction is going, because like the idea of with no targets in range, you can throw it to the unoccupied spot, basically pre-prepping the traps. I really do like that, but
so I'm curious. Pokeniner mentioned that Gloomstalker gets that at such an early level and improved. And I'm curious if he's referring to the Dread Ambusher feat, where it says if you take the attack action on your first turn in combat, you can make one additional weapon attack. No, it's at the start of your first turn of each combat, your walking speed will increase by 10 feet, which lasts until the end of that turn. If you take the attack action on that turn, you can make an additional weapon attack as a part of that action. Because that's kind of what I was talking about. Because it's on your turn in combat rather than when entering into initiative.
Yeah, and that's why I don't mind the idea, especially trying to set up the extra attack. I think my only issue is that it's triggering on initiative. And maybe I just don't. I mean, I get the idea of using a reaction, but at the same time, it's almost like this is one of those situations where isn't basing it on a reaction almost a gimme? Because at what point would you be starting initiative and have already used your reaction?
So
I don't understand 5th edition enough to know when would your reaction have been used before initiative.
There are a couple of features that allow you to do things in response to people coming at you, right? So normal reactions are opportunity attacks when somebody's running outside of your range. But you get a special feat for a Polar Master where when someone enters your range, you can use your reaction to make an attack of opportunity.
It's like a reverse of attack of opportunity because they're coming in instead of leaving.
Exactly. So I can see the idea of the mindset. It's like my senses are so honed that I hear a twitch and I recognize that that's somebody loosing their bow, right? And so in response to that, even though the attack hasn't hit me yet, I'm like already throwing something out, like the idea of like a martial artist's like response
and
time
that would fall in line with the Shinobi being very reactive.
Is exactly that. It's like my body reacts even before my brain can fully process it because it's been trained that much into me.
Yeah.
So to a certain extent, I get where that is going. And calling it a reaction makes a lot more sense to me than just being able to attack once at that point in time, because it's almost just like an offshoot, and it would mean that, say there would be another chance for me to use my reaction, I wouldn't be able to until my turn happens again, right?
So, because the rest of that initiative
for the rest
would
of
have
that
removed
time,
your reaction.
I've already used my reaction to do that initial attack, to respond to the initiation of somebody coming towards me or my party. I get that mindset to a certain extent, but I do see what you're saying. It's a lot, but not a lot. Well, that's the wrong word. No, I like the vibe that it is going for sure. Like it's trying to.
It's definitely going in the right direction for Shinobi. I'm just trying to like logically understand that level of instantaneous. I know who my enemies are.
Yes.
And before anything happens, I know to just attack them. Like I get the idea of the sixth sense from a Shinobi. I get the idea of that and wanting to be prepared. I just don't know if I like the particular direction that we've gone, right? Like adding an extra attack or automatically saying that not only do you get advantage in initiative rolls and you can't be surprised, even just stating that even though you get advantage on initiative rolls, you can't be surprised, and when entering initiative, you're always first in the first initiative. So you still roll initiative and you get advantage, but you're always first in the first round of combat. Even if it's a surprise round, you're still always first to react. That I feel would be better, because then you can choose to do this, right? Or you can choose to move or do whatever. But I like the idea that upon combat, no matter what your initiative you rolled with advantage, the very first round, you're always first to react.
So does that mean you go back to your place after initiative starts again?
Yeah, so let's say you were 5, you rolled 5 after, with initiative, you rolled a 3 and a 5, right? So now you're initiative 5. But first round of combat, you're first period. So and just like what this is kind of saying is no matter what initiative starts, that first round, you were the first to react, still gives you the Shinobi abilities. You can still do this if you want, but it also gives you the ability to do anything else as a Shinobi. Hide, do your smoke bomb, move. I feel like that would be more in line with a Shinobi, is no matter what initiative starts, you're the first to act, period. Then after that, your advantage in initiative takes place. Right. That feels better than just, to me, it feels logically better than you just get an errant attack at anyone you think is an enemy, and I think that's just more of words.
I know for you, initiative rolls aren't a d20, but would you give advantage on every dynamic initiative rolls, theoretically speaking? So again, no matter how often you roll initiative,
I would allow a subclass. I would allow a subclass to have permanent initiative advantage, even with the dynamic advantage.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But I think also giving them the first action in combat instead of just an attack to do this trap, I think also opens up the Shinobi, because they can take the hide action. They can move, they could dash, they could attack, they could defend, they could pop a potion, they could go heal someone.
I like the idea of, like, imagine setting out 3 traps out the gate and then hiding.
Right, because if they have all of those extra moves, right? So instead of just saying that they get advantage and they can't be surprised, instead of saying all you do is get an extra, you get this free attack, I'd much prefer to say, hey, you just act first, period, end of story. The moment any action happens, you're the first person on the battlefield. What are you doing? And then you can use all your combat surges. You can throw all of your traps out. You can disappear. You can do so much more than just get one free attack, which I feel just is out of place with standard actions in combat. But I would absolutely say that, yes, you get advantage on initiative. You can't be surprised, and guaranteed the first round of combat, you're going first. I would feel, even though that sounds more OP because you can do more with it, I feel like that's more in line with what I would feel a Shinobi is. Because the idea of this one's basically already saying as a reaction you can attack, but if it's a reaction, if I'm a Shinobi and my reaction is to react to combat, why is my only reaction an attack? Shouldn't my reaction also be able to let me hide? Or defend a buddy? You know what I mean? Like, depending on what my Shinobi abilities are for, I think I'd much prefer to be able to take any action I want versus just an attack action. And I think that makes more sense, like what you were talking about. Like, it just makes more sense with how a Shinobi reacts to it at the moment. Some Shinobis would be aggressive and throw a trap or kill an enemy. Other Shinobis would be like, you don't see me. Like, I think it would make more versatility to just say, you're the first to act in first round of initiative, and then your advantage takes, your advantage roll would take place after that.
Interesting.
I think I would like that more. I mean, hell, even at 10th level, you even brought up the fact of 10th level. Why not just say you get an advantage on initiative rolls, but you also get a free turn on the first initiative? So you go first.
So you always surprise your enemy?
Yeah, so you would always get a free surprise round at the beginning of initiative, and then you also immediately default into your advantage initiative, which could also be first. So maybe you get 2 free whole rounds in a row. That would be dope as a Shinobi. You get to do a whole free round of action and then a whole free round of action.
Some feature that gives you like a second round in combat or something like that.
So let's look at what Pokeniner has brought up too. So the Gloomstalker gets that at early level. So you mean you can't use your reaction if the enemy is so it means you can't use your reaction if the enemy is faster than you. Your reaction only refreshes on your turn. So that makes sense. And that's what I was saying. I just don't understand, like, if it's the beginning of the round, what would I have used my reaction for before combat? So I feel like it's almost like a wasted limitation, because if you're limited it to, well, you have to use your reaction, it's like, but it's the start of combat. Like, we just rolled initiative. I wouldn't have used my reaction.
Theoretically, like, if it's the start of combat and I am not surprised and somebody runs past me, I can use my reaction to hit them.
Right.
But if I've used this feature, then that's when
To me, that sounds like
it is fairly situational.
It sounds so situational. I wouldn't even think about it. Like I personally, as a player, I'd be like, that's not important.
I mean, I'd say that's the most common. But again, I would say the possibility exists, especially if like I'm trying to be between them and maybe someone who's more squishy, or maybe I'm like the last line of defense before some NPC we're protecting, somebody that's got like no armor, some maid or whatever the case may be, and someone wants to run past me. Using that reaction to try and stop them is very valuable. And so if I've used it already,
because the opportunity attack will stop their movement if you hit them.
If you have something like the
sentinel will stop them. Yeah,
exactly. So being able to decide whether I want to do that or not, like I can see, and again, it depends a lot of your gameplay, but to be honest, like I've said this before, there are a lot of features in 5th
that's why I would prefer
situational.
Like a full thing. I just get to go first, because then I can save my reaction to where once I've done my full round in first initiative, if they run past me, I still get my reaction to do like that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the direction I would like to go with it. Is I think just give me first initiative, like first round is just mine. Like I just get to go first round. I think that feels better than specifically attacking an enemy within sight. And again, it's pedantic, but it's more of narratively. It makes more sense with the Shinobi to be able to do all of that.
I could definitely see both. I do like what you're saying. I do think that works.
Which is ironic because I'm basically giving the Shinobi more options. I'm basically saying the Shinobi should have more things to be able to do in that first initiative than just throw their dagger. Which is essentially all my argument is if you're gonna do this and say that they can throw the dagger, just give them the whole first action and let them do any of their abilities. I think that's just my initial argument, because I do want to highlight that Shinobi can just hide. It's a fighter that can hide. What if that's the first thing it wants to do is just disappear and wait until that would be kind of cool too. So that might just be directive of player mindset, how I would play the Shinobi versus how somebody else might want to play it.
Right.
So let's see. So Pokeniner is also saying that with the initiative, you're often going first anyway with this class.
It's very true, especially when you got all those bonuses, your proficiency, your advantage.
I mean, you already have advantage on initiative rolls, so I get that. So you're probably already going to go first, which again, having an extra action or, something like that, or having your own like surprise round, like having advantage on surprising enemies would be interesting too. So he is saying that technically someone can be faster than you and you could lose that chance to go first. Then I feel like that when you take away the fear moment when an enemy does outpace you. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know how often that would actually happen though, that you'd run into an enemy that would be able to outpace you, but that's why I feel like if you just gave them like that first round free, just guaranteed that first initiative, they're just going to get to do whatever they want. Or even just a whole free round. Like even that though, even at 10th level, saying that with this ability, you get a whole free round at the beginning of initiative. Just a whole free round to do any of your actions, and then initiative starts. So you always get you as a character always get a surprise round. Kind of fits too. Basically, the Shinobi gets to instantly react and go, I get to do all my actions. Oh, now we can start combat.
Interesting.
I think I'd prefer that over this. And I don't know why. I think just narratively, that makes even more sense that the Shinobi just gets a full free round before anybody else gets to act, right? It's kind of like that whole ninja moving at light speed and faster than everybody else can see. You just get to just react to the situation, do your deal, and then combat starts. And that's probably way more OP than just being able to attack, but I think narratively it sounds better. So maybe that's just a weird thing for me.
Interesting.
But again, I love the idea of having the advantage on initiative and not being able to be surprised. Those two, clutch. And then, do we have anything until 15th level other than ASIs?
Yes. So at 11th level, you get another extra attack. That means you're attacking 3 times with 1 attack action. At 12th level, you get another ability score improvement or feat. At 13th level, you get a second use of your Indomitable feat, which means if you fail a saving throw, you get to re-roll it and take the second effect.
Okay.
The second number. And at 14th level, you get another ability score improvement or feat.
All right. So at 15th level, we get Dangerous Presence. At 15th level, you can ensure prime chances to strike. When you are hidden from a creature and miss it with a ranged attack with a thrown weapon, making the attack doesn't reveal your position.
I love that.
And that is something that rogues never get.
Yes.
I don't think any rogue ever gets to stay hidden after a missed attack, and that is fucking clutch. That, I will say, makes me feel like a Shinobi.
Yes.
Like staying hidden.
Yes.
That's great.
That is top.
In addition, whenever a creature affected by your thrown cordon feature cannot see you, the creature's saving throw is at disadvantage. So wait, so when would that...
So that's like anytime you hide from somebody and you're trying to throw...
Oh, because it's the trap. When you do your trap, if you miss them and you do your recall, it's a DC 8 plus their dexterity saving throw.
That's the same.
So this is saying if they don't see you, which I 100% agree with. If they don't see you, they don't see the trap. I agree with that. The saving throws at disadvantage. Okay, I'm going to say this. I love everything about this. Dangerous Presence, I am all about. It just came way too late.
I do think
I'd be honestly upset at 15. But if you told me, like, if I didn't know about this and I made it to 15 level and then you gave this to me, I'd be like, now I get this?
I will say, I feel like the disadvantage, lightweight should have always been there. Or at least a much earlier, like maybe 5th or 6th level. But the not revealing your position, I can see that.
That should have been early, man.
10th level. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that should have been. I wouldn't even mind getting strategic setup and Dangerous Presence flipped. I would like to have seen, like, you're right, I would like to have seen Dangerous Presence at 10th level, because that sounds more like the fighter becoming a rogue, and then later down the road being able to own combat by being first in initiative. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I feel like that might have been a better switch, is let me be more roguey early on.
I can see that too.
Because as a fighter, I'd be using this way more often. Personally, as a fighter rogue kind of combo, I'd be using Dangerous Presence way more often than I would trying to be first in initiative, right? So I think that I would have switched those. I think I would have wanted Dangerous Presence first.
Interesting. It says the Arcane Trickster gets a similar feature at level 13.
This is the same tier of play that it should pop up from your testing. Yeah. And again, I don't think that this is bad. I love this ability. I just personally think it should have come earlier. I just think as a fighter with the rogue influence, and especially the way with the Shinobi, I'd have wanted to have been hiding in shadows way more, and this ability to set up my traps and not have them notice and have disadvantage, I would have been all over that as a player way sooner. Like, if I had the choice, that would have been my bread and butter. This right here feels like this should be the cornerstone. Not, like, I like the idea of being able to go ahead of somebody, but that doesn't feel as Shinobi-like. Being able to go ahead of combat.
It makes me feel like I'm quick, but like this being like, again, you got that stealth skill at the beginning, and this is really the first time you're seeing any use of being stealthy. Like, every other time, like, yes, you can be stealthy, and yes, you'll have advantage, but like, what is that, like, how is that really being ingrained into
and
what
if you're thinking
doing?
about like the progression, later levels, like at 15th level, I'm going to be more tanky. I'm going to want to be, just let me start the battle, let me get out there.
In order for
but
you to
earlier
hide, you need to use that bonus action. So this is kind of like interesting, because you still need to use the, now it does say the initial attack. So like your initial attack you can hide first, you can use your bonus action to hide and then do the initial attack, and then if that doesn't work, on your next turn you use your bonus action to especially because your position isn't revealed and they don't know where you're at and they can't
and they still
find
get the
you,
DC.
then
Yeah,
you can activate your trap and do whatever. But
I just feel like, yeah, that sounds like it should have been sooner, because that plays into the other abilities more. I think I would prefer to be further in initiative or first in initiative later. You know what I mean? Like I want to be more powerful before I'm first in initiative. I think as a fighter that has these rogue influences, I want to be more of a rogue early on. Because by this point, if I've already gotten this ability to be first in initiative, I'm less likely to hide. I'm more likely to be in your face about it, right? I would have preferred to work up to and learn my skills at hiding, my skills at setting traps, and then get first initiative. So personally, for me, playing wise, I think those should just be switched. I think they're both great. I don't have any changes for Dangerous Presence. I 100% like it. I just think it's too late.
I do like it a lot.
Yeah, I think that's Pokeniner, amazing job on this one. I just think that this particular class deserves it sooner. And then anything until 18th? 16 to 18?
Some big stuff. I mean, some more the same, but it's some big stuff. So another ability score improvement at 16. A second action surge. You can action surge 2 times. Give yourselves 3 attack actions in 1 turn.
That's a lot.
3 attack actions in 1 turn. Now, depending on how you rule it, your additional attack action can either only do 1 attack, or it can do as many as you have. So at this point, you have extra attack 2 times, so you can do 3 attacks. So theoretically, some people would say, some DMs would rule, every single attack action gets 3 attacks. So I do my first 3 attacks, action surge, do 3 more attacks, action surge, do 3 more attacks.
I wouldn't call it that, but that's okay.
That's some craziness.
Unfortunately, you can't action surge twice in the same turn, though.
Wait, what?
You can't action surge twice in the same turn. Also, action surge raw gives you the attacks. Gives you all the attacks for the attack action because it's the attack action.
That's what I thought.
So it's only used for attacks and all of that, but you can only use it once per turn. Once per turn. So you can't just sit there and spam it.
Interesting. So that's your second use of action surge, and then you get a third use of Indomitable, getting to reroll any saving throws, and then that's at 17th level, and then you get your martial archetype feature at 18.
Nice. I gotta do a quick little sidebar here, just because I just had a random idea what you were just reading, so I want to sidebar this real quick. Maybe we'll think about this in the future, but had an idea. Want to know what y'all think about it. What if you designed a homebrew feat? So a homebrew feat for multi-attack, because you see a lot of NPCs get multi-attack, and fighter's really the only one that gets a multi-attack. Now imagine this.
It's more than, because there are a lot of classes that get 2 attacks.
Right, but imagine a feat called multi-attack, where when making an attack, either ranged or melee, you can use this feat to make a secondary attack. So multi-attacks, you get attacked twice, but the second attack is at disadvantage.
Interesting.
So you make your normal attack, but then you can make a secondary one at disadvantage. That's the feat. That's all it is. It's just whenever you make an attack action once per round or once per, like, however you want to say it, you can use as a bonus action, and it would have to be like a bonus action, you can attack again at disadvantage. But that's the feat.
Well, so theoretically, you can already just use your bonus action to do another attack.
Can every class do that?
Anybody can do that.
Really?
Anybody can just use their bonus action to do another attack but you're using your other hand.
You're unarmed. And second edition had unarmed rules, like or offhand rules. Second edition actually had rules for when you attacked with your offhand. I just find it would,
fifth edition,
because there is 2-weapon fighting. Yes. I'm just thinking like it would just be really interesting to have, because there is multi-attack, which is just very common for NPCs. I would just love a feature.
But none of those are at disadvantage.
I know, but that's my point. Is like that's why I want a lower version where it's an easy feat. Anybody can pick it up during an ASI like a feat, but the whole point is it's just one of those things where it's easy to add the extra attack, but it's not necessarily going to be devastating to any class. I don't know. I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. If it's a light weapon, I think, yeah. I just wanted to just throw that out there as a secondary idea, kind of like as a potential short for something. But I wanted to just, I was really curious about what y'all would think about a feat that granted a character multi-attack, and the second, because again, it's always multi-attack, right? You're basically always, every attack gets a second attack. The second one's just a disadvantage, and it burns a bonus action. So that way, there's some economy there, and it's not always beneficial, but it could really make like a rogue or a fighter a little bit more juicy if they're always getting that extra, because I'm thinking a dagger, like a rogue who wants to throw 2 daggers. So you do the whole quick throw, but the second one's obviously going to be at a lesser advantage because it's your offhand and you're throwing it fast. So that's why I think of anything is more of you get a second attack, but it's at disadvantage because it's
rogues are super encouraged to use their bonus action for so many other things.
That's why it would be like one of those things. You may not want to use this, right? You may not want this feat because you may not want to burn your bonus action as a rogue.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Interesting. Anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. So the issue is that folks would look to disable the disadvantage, like Barbarian's Reckless Attack or Samurai's Fighting Spirit. Additional attack with the disadvantage I don't think would be pursued. An additional normal attack on the other hand. And well, that's the thing is I would want to make it, I wouldn't want to make it a full extra attack though. That's because that's like kind of what the fighters are for. I just want this as like an additional feat for certain custom builds. Like not like, again, it's not supposed to be a class feat. It would be a feat that anyone can pick up for a custom build. And it would be specific to like if you had a specific character build that you wanted to do, that being able to add in that extra attack would be beneficial. So it would just be more for more custom creations than it would be for any particular class. Because there are a lot of classes that, you guys are right, there's a lot of classes that have feats specific to that. This would just be to fill in any others, but I didn't realize that any bonus action could be an additional attack. That's very strange to me.
There are limits. You don't get your proficiency bonus when you're attacking with it, and you don't get any bonus damage when you do damage with it.
Still though, that's so crazy to me that anybody can just attack twice. Like, I know it's not like that big of a deal, but it's also, that's just weird that everybody has that. I didn't know that about 5th edition. Yeah. You learn something new every day. There's a feat called counterattack. If a melee attack misses, you can react. I mean, that's an additional kind of concept. I don't dislike that one. Yeah, I don't know. It was just something that just came up when he was talking. I just wanted to throw that out there, see how the vibe was. Because, yeah, there isn't really a multi-attack option for player characters, only for NPCs. You know what I mean? It's just, there are things that can make you attack more than once, but there's no specific thing that just allows you, every time you attack, to attack multiple times.
I would say most, if not all, martial classes will get that. So
like fighters and all that, yeah.
Fighters, monks, paladins.
Do paladins get an extra attack?
Paladins get an extra attack. Not clerics, because they are full casters.
I didn't know. I know monks did, and I knew fighters did. I didn't know paladins got the extra attack.
And I think rangers get it too. Let me check.
Oh, do rangers get it now too?
Base.
That would make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
All martials except for rogues.
Yeah.
All right, so maybe that's not necessary. Who knows? Well, I guess you guys do. Okay, so now we know what we get up to 18. So let's continue with the Shinobi at level 18. Even some of the casters do. Oh.
Really? Casters do.
Interesting. Okay, so we have Master Shinobi at level 18. When you reach level 18, your surprise attacks are devastating to face. Whenever you make an attack against a creature that does not see you, you have advantage on all attacks against that creature until the end of your turn, rather than only the first. I like that.
Okay.
That's definitely a huge increase. That would make any rogue jealous. I don't think, because rogues don't get that, right? Rogues don't ever get to remain or maintain their advantage while they're hidden. They only get their first attack, right?
Yes.
That's huge to just overshadow the rogue like that. In addition, when you make a ranged weapon attack with one of your thrown weapon attacks and land a critical, you can roll the damage dice of that weapon 3 times instead of twice.
That's kind of like the rogue's backstab. That's as close as you're going to get to that version of it.
But the rogue's backstab requires you to be up close and personal. This just is any ranged attack when they can't see you.
Not necessarily for the rogue.
Well, a crit. It's only a crit though. Actually, yeah. No, backstab just happens when they don't see you. This is only on a crit.
Yeah.
So, actually, no, I like that. At level 18, being able to triple damage on a crit, I like that. That's dope.
Kind of cool.
And maintain your advantage on attacks as long as you remain hidden. I got no changes. That's actually solid at 18.
Just like freaking shurikens just flying out of the shadows and having like no idea where it's coming from. Like that's insane to me. That's very cool.
You know what I would add? I would add something to this. Whenever you make an attack against a creature that does not see you, you have advantage on all attacks against that creature until the end of your next turn rather than only the first. Upon a successful hit, you may move 5 feet. You may have a free 5 feet of movement. So basically, you're in the shadows. You hit someone, you get to move 5 feet. Kind of the idea of you don't know where I am.
You.
So it blades into this mindset of even if you saw where it came from, I'm not there anymore. And then on a crit, it's 10 feet. So with this ability, I think the Master Shinobi 100% exactly as is, but on a successful hit, you can move freely 5 feet, and on a crit, 10 feet. So the idea is you aren't in the same spot that you threw the dagger from, so guaranteed there's no way to know where you are. Just as an addition to the Shinobi. Because that's the one thing we haven't seen with this class yet is movement. We haven't seen any real movement opportunities. This, I think, is one of those opportunities where once you're hidden, stay and move into the shadows, I think would be a cool addition to this. Pokeniner, let me know what you think about that one. I really like Master Shinobi. I think 100% it needs to say, I like the triple damage on crit. I like the advantage on all attacks as long as you're hidden. I just kind of like the idea that you should have some movement too. 5 feet on a regular hit, 10 feet on a crit. So do you reveal yourself on a hit? You just are so on point of the target that you have advantage. You still can hide with your bonus action.
So I'd say that this allows you to keep yourself hidden so you don't have to use your bonus action and you can continue to use your recall without having to re-hide all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. As long as you hit them, you're not revealed. Because normally when you're hiding as like a rogue and you hit someone, you're revealed. This just says that, you have the attacks on them, and when you make an attack and it lands a critical, you get the 3 times. But as long as you attack a creature that doesn't see you have creature does not see you have advantages on all attacks until the end of your turn. In addition, hold on. No, the previous one, dangerous presence doesn't reveal you when you make an attack on a creature. Mm-hmm. It won't reveal you. But this one just means that you continue to have advantage as long as you remain hidden. Right? So you hit a creature, you have advantage, but then the next round you also have advantage as long as you're hidden instead of just one round.
Yeah, but see, it's interesting because I would think that if you are hidden from your target, rules as written, you get advantage, period.
So you still reveal yourself. Okay, so you still reveal yourself. You only gain advantage through Unseen Attacker, the feature in the base game, but this lets you have the bonus regardless. So this is basically saying you're essentially, even though you're revealed, you basically re-hide and still remain with the advantage. Because when you hit someone, you're revealed.
Yeah.
And then you would lose your hiding, which means you lose your advantage. Okay. This is saying that even though you're revealed, you retain the advantage. Okay. Which I think, if that's the case, if the idea is you're still revealed, I like the idea of adding the 5 feet of movement because that overwrites the reveal. You attack and then you've moved 5 feet. So even though you would normally have been revealed, you've moved in the shadows and not revealed yourself. That's a lore reason, an in-game explanation of why you wouldn't be revealed and why you would maintain your thing. But I like that Pokeniner was thinking that through, that it's the idea that you still get revealed, but then you re-hide, or at least you still maintain your advantage. I don't know. I think that it could be kind of cool to let the Shinobi move, though. Like,
yeah,
you hit someone, you can move 5 feet free, and if you hit someone with a crit, you have 10 feet free.
I kind of like the idea that, like, because I'm thinking about this, like, theoretically, like, if I'm a Shinobi and if I'm doing this, imagine I'm just throwing all 3 of these daggers at once, or I'm like, doing all of this, so like I get advantage on all of the attacks, even though they're different people, different directions, whatever the case may be. But it's all this instantaneous thing, which is kind of why I don't get revealed in each of my attacks, like, or they're just in such quick succession that they all come out before you recognize where they're coming from,
right?
So now, is it saying that it's only on the one target? Like,
whenever you make an attack against a creature that does not see you, you have advantage on all attacks against that creature until the end of your turn, rather than only the first attack. Okay. So it's only it's only the end of your turn, not every round. It's just only the end of your turn. So if you have multi-attack on it, they all have advantage instead of just the first attack. Mm-hmm. And then when you make a ranged attack, if you get crit, you can move. So I don't know, if you added in the movement, if you said on a crit you get to move 5 feet, you could essentially give them the opportunity to like reapply the hide mechanic. I don't know. There's more here I think that you could play with, but I do like it. So you stack those advantages to get the crits, which makes sense, right? You keep going until you get a crit to get the triple damage.
Yeah, I like that.
And then just mow down someone.
I would even let you. I would give it to them as you can use your reaction to move however far, and then you would if you use your reaction to do that, you automatically get to roll another stealth check without having to use your bonus.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of cool, especially at 18.
So as long as you still had movement on a successful hit, you can choose to move. Yes. And you'll get a free hide action.
Technically only be able to use it once because you have to use your reaction to do it. Right.
But still, that's a good idea though. Yeah. Like it still burns the economy and it still allows you to maintain that. Yeah, that would be a good idea. I like that. Be able to move with the reaction and re-hide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. And then what do we have here? Throwing weapon rules. Okay, so that's it. So nothing for 20th level.
Class. This was put in there. I wasn't 100% sure where to put it.
So let's just see what this says. So throwing weapon rules, as there are currently no written rules for what occurs after throwing a weapon at a target. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I provided DMs, players and DMs with a simplified solution with the intent of easing the playability. When a creature makes a thrown weapon attack and misses, the attack either travels its long-range distance or lands in a space within 5 feet of the intended target. Isn't that the standard? I thought that was always the standard.
I don't think there's any rules as written regarding what happens when you miss on a thrown weapon attack.
Not in 5th. I know there are... I need to look that up. There are older rules that basically state this exact thing. It basically is intended to go its full distance or within 5 feet of the target. It's DM's choice. That's always been, as far as I know, Pokeniner, that's always been the standard.
I would say
it's DM's choice.
I would say that because it wouldn't really make sense for it to be the DM's choice. Wouldn't it be the player's choice?
No.
Whether you're intending to do it, because for me, just in general,
because you're throwing at the player's throwing at the enemy. You're throwing at the enemy. It's the DM's decision on, does that mean you threw it and it arcs and hits right behind him, or does it go straight past him and keep on going?
Interesting.
It's a DM's. It's always been DM's discretion on how, and it's supposed to indicate that it's supposed to be continuity. If you throw it past him and it goes the full distance, it's intended that DM's choices all go full distance. Whereas if a DM's chosen it within 5 feet, they're all supposed. It's supposed to be a DM chooses, and that's the status.
It feels like just from my logic, it feels like a thrown weapon would land within 5 feet, and like a regular ranged weapon, like a crossbow or a longbow or something like that, would go the full distance.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, second. If it wasn't second, it was third. One of them did state basically exactly what you wrote down, Pokeniner. It's supposed to be DM's choice. It's either it travels the full distance, or it lands within a range of the target. I just don't remember what edition. I know 4th edition didn't have anything on that, which would be, and it wouldn't surprise me that 5th doesn't. I'm curious if it was 3 or 2nd. I want to say it's 3rd though. I don't think 2nd was that specific. I want to say 3 or 3.5 solved that. So,
okay. Actually,
could you write that down in DM notes? I'm gonna look that up, and if that's worth an episode, I'll make an episode on that.
What is it?
Just history of ranged weapons, and we can just look into that. Like armor or dodging armored enemy probably popped off. More dexterity probably avoided it entirely. It allows DMs to tell the story. Yeah, and I 100% agree with you, Pokeniner. What you've done here is basically like, I think it makes perfect sense, because just like what Kage was saying too, depending on what type of weapon it was, you can narrate what it is. Like an arrow obviously doesn't just land 5 feet unless you're like, I can understand an arrow landing 5 feet within the enemy if you're on high ground. If you're very far away and you're doing a very like high arch, I can understand it landing close to the enemy. But if you're within 30 feet and I'm shooting an arrow right at you and I miss, it's going fucking beyond you, okay? I'm not aiming at your feet. I'm aiming at your body.
Unless you're like a point of elevation or something.
Unless you're in the high elevation, like, unless you have the high ground, I 100% agree that things like that. But if I'm throwing a dagger at you, the dagger's not going that much far beyond you. You know what I mean? Like 10, 15 feet maybe. But it's not going 100 feet beyond you. Like, I know how hard I need to throw it. You're not throwing weapons at max strength, right? Because you know how far you need to throw. So
yes.
I can easily see the difference between all of those. I 100% agree though that it should be DM choice, but I also agree that if it's not consistent, if it's not a one-time, hey, if you throw a weapon, it's either 5 feet or max distance, I think the DM has the onus to make it make sense.
Make it consistent.
Yeah, if you say one time that my hand axe goes 5 feet beyond my enemy, and in the very next fight you say it goes the full 60 feet, but you give no explanation of why, that's a problem. But if you say, hey, you were slightly lower than him, or he's a bigger than you, or you said, you know what, I'm just, even if the player was like, hey, I'm just going to rocket this as hard as I can at the guy, and that was just your flavor text, and that's what the DM said, hey, you said you threw it at your hardest, so you missed him and it went its full distance. That I can understand, right? I can allow a DM to like have a reasoning for it, but have a reasoning or have consistency. Don't decide just to mess with your players. You know what? Don't just be like, nope, you don't have access to it for the rest of the combat because you threw it outside of combat. Like, that's just you being a dick. So I agree with you, Pokeniner. Giving DMs a guidance, especially in 5th edition that doesn't have that kind of guidance, I think that's a fantastic way to go. All right, so let's take a look at this. So, Shinobi class, what are we feeling about it? I think that description-wise, on point. I think that Pokeniner has given us enough of an argument that I agree. I'm on board with Shinobi being a fighter subclass with a rogue influence.
And it feels like it did a really good job of making that a reality.
Yeah, I agree with that. In fact, I'm even going to give Pokeniner the +1 point for inspiration because it is inspiring me to rethink the direction from subclasses, right? Like, my initial thought was Shinobi should be monk or rogue. This is really making me rethink. Sometimes subclasses aren't what you think.
Very much so, and I really like that idea of like, hey, you can make this work here. And we were even almost talking about that in
the repurposing.
In the repurposing, yeah. But and I think this is a good example of, hey, yes, you could do this over here. Yes, you could do this over here. But like, when you look at like what your true goal is to like fully embody, like even when I think it was Hecate that did the Necromancer reskin, the revamp basically, and basically say, I want this to feel like I am a controller of the undead. Like, that's what this looks like to me. So
no,
for sure.
And Pokeniner is saying like, yeah, fighters have a particular fighting style, and while they do have a particular fighting style, I feel like a lot of the subclasses in D&D don't represent the embodiment of the fighting style, right? Like samurai, their entire code is more than just their fighting style. Their fighting style, their code, their way of life, their ethos, everything is in line with itself. Whereas a lot of subclasses in fighter, yeah, it's how you fight, but that's it. It's what weapon you choose and how you use it. This really starts to blend in the difference between, it's not just the weapons you choose, but it's the way you approach the battlefield. It's the way you approach being tactical. It's the way that you know when to hide, know when to be in their face. Like, this is one of those subclasses that make you feel more well-rounded when you're making your decisions. So I like that of this one, is it's more than just a fighting style, it's a way of life. This is a class that truly shows off the dedication the character has taken to this lifestyle, right? And that's another thing too. It's more of a lifestyle than it is a class.
Yes.
Unlike monks and rogues who have philosophers or lifestyles, this isn't one of those. And again, I think you're on a good point, but I think you're slightly wrong. I think this is more of a lifestyle. It's not just a trained art. It's not just a fighting art. It's a whole way of, like, most fighters are about aggression. They're about prowess, right? They're about tactic. They're about overcoming their enemy and overpowering them. Whereas this is much not just a fighting art, but this is a way of approaching your enemy. It's a way of approaching the battlefield, especially as a fighter. This is a completely different mindset for a fighter. So as much as I think you're right, Pokeniner, I think you're selling it short. I think this is more of a lifestyle, like more like a rogue, right? A rogue lives its lifestyle. Monks live their class. They are an embodiment, but fighters, I don't think do that enough. I think this is one of those subclasses that shows off a fighter living their class, right?
Very
like
so.
Actually embodying it. So I will give you, you're definitely going to get an extra point for that. Now, when it comes to high point, let's look at the high point compatibility. Now, I already have things that are very similar to this, but typically because of the way that I work with second edition, I typically because I don't have specific subclasses like this, it's more of how the players want to run their characters. High Point doesn't specifically need this exact build, but it's making me think. It's making me rethink a lot of different builds. Now, in points of balance, there's a lot of amazing things on here that fit right in line with High Point, and there's a couple things that I think lore-wise, again, it's more of the lore-wise, I'd have to change up to rearrange. I love Sharp Range. Sharp Range is that, if anything, Pokeniner, if I'm taking anything from this, I'm taking Sharp Range. That right there almost deserves a whole extra point, just because that is such a good fucking ability. And non-magical tactical recall, also phenomenal. Those are definitely going to carry this a long way, because those two right there, Sharp Range and tactical recall, are two things that are vastly underutilized in D&D altogether. This one's going to be tough. I love Dangerous Presence. Let me see here. What do we got? We have enough things that I also have to kind of look at. Does it compare to anything else that we've had? I don't think this compares to anything we've had.
No, and that's honestly why I was really excited for it, is because it's something that, again, like the samurai class that I want to build, feels like it fills a hole that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't like, there are roguelike things, there are sneaky like things, but like this right here, number one, it's a ranged subclass, which there are too few of in general. It really plays into aspects of stealth that I feel like are capitalized on a way that no other class really does.
That's true. That is true.
There's definitely a lot of really high points for really high marks for a subclass like this, especially with how it was done within the fighter subclass, giving so many other options for customization, and I honestly, so a lot of our other viewers will add a lot of things like the I don't know if we've gotten into it yet, but sometimes some of our other subclass, the necromancy subclass, we got a lot of spells added with that. We also got a lot of homebrewing to the additions. I think with especially with fighter subclasses, it would be really cool to see custom feats that, yes, they could be chosen by anybody, but would be really good and really valuable for a subclass like this. I would love to see a thrown weapon feat of some sort that gives you some sort of benefit here that would add on to a class like this, that would synergize really well, but could theoretically be used elsewhere and with other classes. So that's only something that I would add, but like with what's here, there's so much cool stuff you can do.
Yeah. All right. No, and thank you for giving me that recap, because that's definitely helped me, I think, nail down my score here. You've brought up a lot of good points. This, not only do I like a lot of the things that are happening here, but there were a lot of compatibility issues. You should have a clear identity of how combat goes. Hold on. I've lived in my designs that fighters should have the most simplest of combat effects. You should have clear identity of how combat goes, since it defines a strong part of what you do. I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. And I was going to be a little bit more critical on this. I think this is going to get a lower score, but Kage brings up a good couple points that this is really pushing fighter into new boundaries, right? It's pushing fighter into an area that I think is good. I want to see more subclasses of fighter like this that are basically blending the boundaries, right? They're bleeding into the boundaries of other areas, right? I feel like so many times we see subclasses that are too specific right, to what they're trying to be, like too specific to the primary class, and they're not inclusive enough to be something unique. And I think that's what we're getting here. So, okay, so when it comes down to everything, let's look at this properly. So it's not okay. What did I really say? I would need to change. I think that would be at a different level. That would be slightly reduced. I would only take Blade Trap. Each reaction makes a single throw against a creature. I liked that one. I really liked that one. I think I would just. Oh yeah, I would have just swapped these two places, and then I really liked Master Shinobi. So really just swapping those two, doing that one, it's really not that far off, and it is making me realize that, you know, things like Fighter could be... They could be really changed up. Man, this one's really making... This one's throwing me for a loop. I don't know. I'm flip-flopping between two scores, and I'm just trying to figure out... Again, it's not so much my it's compatibility, right? Like I really got to look at, like, I like it, I know what I want to do with it, but how easily could I put this in High Point as is? What am I thinking? Because it really makes me rethink a lot of stuff. It makes me rethink, like, a lot of my personal class builds. Shouldn't take this long. It shouldn't be this hard, but
it is a doozy, man. Like, he did a really good job here, so I get it. I really do. There's a lot that could be said for...
Oh, Pokeniner, you're right. Yeah, Blade Trap, creatures within 5 feet. So it's not the creature that you missed. It's all creatures within 5 feet would take damage. So a miss is actually more damaging than a hit.
That's all creatures.
And it also actually makes it sense. Like, so the Blade Trap...
the Smoke Trap, I can definitely see hitting.
And then what
off.
I'm really interested too is that, does that mean I can miss on purpose? Can I just, like, throw it beyond a target and then activate the trap? Or does it have to be...
It says you can aim for an unoccupied space.
That is true.
So if you aim for an unoccupied space, I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah, Pokeniner says yes, you can. Okay. Alright, so... Fine. Move, modify, remove, swap. It's really not that much that I would need to change. We talked a lot, but there really wasn't a lot of things I would change out. I think we just talked a lot about the different directions, but I don't think we actually said, like, these are the things that truly need to be changed. We just talked about different ways it could change. So I will land, I think, as much as I'm not 100% happy with this particular build as written, I think it gives me a lot to think about. I think that it inspires me a lot to rethink the way that I do classes in High Point, which I think that alone makes it have a higher point. It would still need quite a few things changed up for me to be able to use it, but I will give it the inspiration points it deserves. So we're going to land on a 7 out of 10 for compatibility.
7 out of 10. I love it.
It was, you know, if it wasn't so unique as a fighter build and it didn't give me ideas on how to expand it, it probably would have been closer to a 4 or 5. but the uniqueness of expanding it into a subclass that's not multi-classing, it's basically a subclass that's multi-classing for you. That is an idea worth promoting,
Especially
and it
because
makes me rethink of what real classes are, because again, I initially just thought this was a rogue class, so it makes me rethink of what classes really are, and it also shows me that a subclass can make it feel like a multi-class. Those are the two things that I'm giving.
That right there. Think about how many times, just like I said at the beginning, you do a dip into fighter just to get action surge, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being able to focus on your whole class. Imagine being able to go from
but
1
just
to
get
20
action surge
and just get the pieces that you need, right? You know, and so like this right here, I would dip into rogue just to get your bonus action abilities.
But you
right?
won't have to with this. You can just purely focus on being a fighter.
Here, and I love it when classes feel like they're whole and complete themselves. They don't be like, oh, if I only had this from over here, I could do so much cool things. I love when it's wholly applicable. So I definitely agree with you on that front.
No, I think this one is I think it's pretty solid. It's not great for high point, but for 5th edition, I will say it's solid. It is. I think it's a very good addition to 5th. I think anybody deserves to try and play test this out. I do think that it has room to grow and be modified, but I think as it is, I think this could be a good addition to almost anybody's 5th edition campaign. So, Pokeniner, hopefully you enjoyed that review. Hopefully you were happy with that score. But yeah, I think that was fantastic. Thank you so much for that that submission. I don't know why my light went off. It's plugged in.
Weird.
Yeah, weird. But yeah, so that was really fun. I am really happy. So did you get, like, you were super excited about Shinobi, especially with your, like, samurai class that you're building.
Yes.
Was this everything that you thought about? Like, was it as exciting?
It was very different than I anticipated it to be, but it was very much, it very much gives me the energy that I was looking for. Like when you say it's giving, this is 100% giving what it's supposed to be.
I agree with you.
And
this gave way more rogue vibes than I expected it to, knowing that it was a fighter class, and I'm all about it.
And it feels like it worked. It feels like it went well with what it was that we were trying to do. And so I am super excited to, again, like throughout this whole episode, I've been taking notes and I've been adding little bits and pieces of not like features from this class, but ideas that were used and like how you can go about doing different things. Like I love the ideas that you have, being able to like recall things, being able to like I would like the idea of eventually, because again, you know, thinking Super Naruto status, like being able to like switch spots with your dagger. Imagine like you throw it to a certain area and then you could like poof, now you're there and you can do whatever it is. Again, I think that would be maybe for a different class, maybe a monk class or something like that, but like just ideas like that of like how
it's getting it's so, because I've done so much work with high point classes, like high point specific classes. This is giving me a new refreshed idea on when I want to approach a new custom class. It's gonna make me rethink what is the base. Sometimes like I may be on a rogue or a monk, and now I have to question, is this a fighter? Is this a mage? Is this a druid? Like it's 100%. Making me really question what is involved in defining a class. And that's what I'm going to take away from this the most, is rethinking what makes a class definitive, like what defines what a class is. And that's what I'm going to take away. So Pokeniner, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I absolutely loved that review. I hope you enjoyed it as well. I think that is going to be us for tonight. I think that's all we have for you guys. So I really do appreciate everybody for showing up. Pokeniner, obviously. Hecate, thank you so much for being there. Benji, I don't know if you're still around, but thank you so much, Benji, for showing up, giving us a follow, and being a first-time chatter. I do think I see, even though I didn't see him in chat, I do think Cosmic snuck in there and has been just kind of poking his head in the background. I think I might see you back there, Cosmic. So thank you so much. Anybody else who's out there, thank you so much for joining us today. You can catch us this Friday, this Friday. As always, we are here Mondays and Fridays, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Mondays, 7:30 Pacific Standard Time on Fridays. If you want to see us, we do reviews every Monday. So if you guys liked what you saw, you guys can always, come back on Mondays and we will do other homebrew reviews. And then on Fridays, we do deep dives, history, history ofs, basically just, just diving into different topics. But yeah, so if you guys are interested and you want to keep up with us, you can get all the announcements when we go live on our Discord, or if you have a topic that you want to hear us talk about on Fridays, if you have your own homebrew you want to hear us review on Mondays, you can submit that through the Discord. That link is in the description now. Pokeniner, I see your question. I'll get back to you in a second. And if you did catch our live stream and you liked what you saw here today, if you missed anything, or if you want to catch any of our other live streams, we do have all of those on our VOD channel on YouTube. That link is in the chat right now as well. So we'd love to see you in the community. We'd love to see you on YouTube. Let us know what you guys thought about today's item. We have a couple questions from chat. What are we going to pick next? And then that was from Pokeniner, and then Hecate. What's the next one? Okay, everybody wants to know, Kage, what is the next item? I think Pokeniner's is more of which one of theirs are we going to choose next. So we have two questions. What is the item that we will review next Monday? And then what is Pokeniner's next item in general?
So the next one that is on our docket as of right now is actually the final re-review from Hisbor for their
the Heavenly Imp.
Yes, the Heavenly Imp.
Finally, okay.
Imp looks like.
So we have a re-review of one that we've already reviewed. The Hisbor, the author, has taken back our ideas and our review, has made some changes, so we'll be re-reviewing that one. So that'll be next Monday. And then which item of Pokeniner's is up next?
Next on Pokeniner's list, because we've been doing so many subclasses, I decided to mix it up just a little bit.
Good idea.
And I put in their Chasm Dwarf. So this is a sub-race of dwarf. It's a sub-race of dwarf, and when I first heard Chasm Dwarf, it's not what I thought it was.
Okay, because I already have ideas, so I'm really curious.
Yes. I'll say it's more aquatic based. See, that's exactly
all
my
right,
reaction.
everybody. So that is it. So next week, if you were here on next Monday, we will be doing a re-review of the Heavenly Imp, which is going to be a showcase. So for those of you who are new, a showcase is when we look at an item similar to how we did today, but instead of looking at it from balancing and DM point of view, we purely look at it from a player point of view, because it's going to be the showcases are typically from settings or non-D&D specific game TTRPGs, or very specific settings that people have created, very specific homebrews that aren't generally available to everybody else. So we do a showcase, which is basically just a different approach, but we still kind of give it the same energy and same attention. So be here for next Monday. After that, we will... Pokeniner says it's called the Dimlin, apparently. Is that what that was called?
Yes.
The Dimlin.
No, I didn't give the actual name, but like the sub race is a. I did not know.
I love how Pokeniner just knew. He was like, "Oh, it's my dwarf. It's the Dimlin. I know that one. That's mine."
Yes.
I love that you know that, Pokeniner. That's so good. It's always good to know that you know what your stuff is.
Yep,
it's so
100%.
fantastic. So I hope you guys all enjoyed today's stream. Again, we will be back on Friday with probably another history of stream, and then back Monday again with more D&D reviews. So hope you guys enjoyed everything. I hope you guys have had a fantastic weekend. I hope you guys have a fantastic week ahead of you. We will be back on Friday. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your night, y'all. Cheers.
Deuces, my friends.